Hello, and welcome to Hold Up, a movie podcast. Last time we were out and about, or oot in a boot, as you might say, but now we land that boat on a beach, enjoy the scenery of some far off Greenland, illuminated by the light of a towering inferno. So come waltzing Matilda with us. We'll see you at the end. Tonight's theme is disaster. I am your host, Davan Skelhorn, and with me as always, your other host, Chris Worldmind Murphy. How you doing, Murphy?
World's on fire, and so am I.
We survived. We're
I
here.
tell you, it was it was a long, dry stretch to get onto the beach. It was
My,
fiery excitement to climb the tower, and then just watch it all go to hell in Greenland. I tell you, it was good times.
it was a ride. It was definitely a ride. We were supposed to have Adam Woodward with us here tonight, but that didn't end up happening. So it'll be just Murphy and I, and Adam will join us some other time. And we'll probably get his thoughts on these films if he indeed watched them.
I suspect he
Uh,
didn't. I suspect he didn't, and he
Not
just
yet. Not yet. Yeah, he's seen them all before except Greenland, though. Uh,
yeah.
it's season one, episode 17 of our show. We're getting there. We're gonna have a 20 episode season, and then we'll, I don't know, shuffle the deck a little bit, and then come back for season two.
Yep.
All kinds of fun things in store. And like I said, we're talking about disasters. And over in theater one, we have On the Beach from 1959, starring Gregory Peck, Ava Gardner, Anthony Perkins, Norman Bates himself, and Fred Astaire, yet not a single dance number. Actually, that's not true. There was a dance number. I take that back.
Was
Directed
there a
by
dance?
Stanley Kramer. Well, not a dance number, but they were dancing in that like ballroom.
Yeah, okay.
A couple
That's
of people.
you get a pass.
Yeah. I don't know if it was Fred Astaire though.
No. Uh,
Okay.
I feel like he was
Any
just
opening thoughts
drinking
on
and smoking.
the beach
Um,
there, Murphy?
well, my opening thoughts, or things I've learned from watching on the beach is you can duck radioactive dust. You can smoke on a submarine. American submarines have a lot of space.
I noticed
Um,
that as well. Way more than those German submarines.
the movie begins in Das Boot, and then it ends with Speed Racer. And Fred Astaire even
It
drives a
does.
number five Mach. What's it? What was it called? Mach five, I think it was. Uh, I wrote it down, but either way, and I found really, honestly, the most intriguing part of the film was like the last 30 minutes, give or take, and that's pretty much
Yeah,
when everyone starts dying.
pretty
So
much.
yeah, somehow this movie that was like about an hour and a half shorter than the director's cut of Das Boot felt longer.
It did feel longer than Das Boot. I agree. That first hour felt very long. About as long
So
as Das Boot. But
yeah,
then you get to the second hour of On the Beach, and it's, I don't know, I just would have rather have watched that. I really didn't need the first hour at all. I don't think it added much at all to the, it didn't make me like the characters more. It, I didn't care about the little things they were doing to enjoy their final days at that point because I didn't care about the characters. And I never really did for most of them.
yeah.
Um, there
I
were a
don't know if it
couple of
was.
strong performances, a couple of not so great performances, I felt. It's a mixed bag. This movie's a mixed bag. Still not 100% sure how I feel about it. So maybe we got to talk about it some more and I'll figure it out. But
Yeah, yeah. I would say upon initial reactions, it's just like I think it's mostly Gregory Peck. He doesn't seemingly
he's flat.
he's so flat and it's hard to follow him, and he's the main
The whole,
character of the whole film, and
the
it's
whole
just like
time I'm wondering why that woman is so like in love with him and infatuated with him because he just seems like even when they're together, it's just like the most boring guy to be with. He almost
yeah,
never said. I mean, he's handsome, but
yeah.
Grandfather
He's
of
handsome.
Spock. You know.
But
Yeah.
you see where the Vulcan comes from.
Yeah, exactly. That's where
like,
Ethan inherited his Vulcan.
you know what?
From the
Actually,
beast.
now with that frame of mind, this actually paints the whole film as a different picture. What if he's just a Vulcan this whole time?
Yeah, really though. Well, why don't we hit the
Uh,
trailer and then get into it?
yeah, let's relive that.
Oh no, I forgot. Okay.
Flash! Motion picture history is made as Stanley Kramer's production of On the Beach opens all over the world in
boy.
unprecedented 6-continent premieres and
Wow,
meets with
6
unprecedented
continents.
success as critics everywhere hail it as a motion picture milestone. New York, Mayor Robert Wagner heads
yes.
the glittering array of celebrities
It
on
is
hand to see the picture
it
the New
is
York Times
technically.
calls the best
Really?
picture
We've
of the
seen better
year.
movies
Herald
from
Tribune
earlier
also
than this
calls
on
it
this show.
Best
But the
picture of
term
the year.
milestone.
The Tingler comes
London,
to mind.
Soviet Ambassador
The
Malik
term
arrives for
milestone
On the
fits.
Beach premiere, and the London Standard proclaims,
Magnificent, a film that must not be missed.
Rome, enthusiastic crowds hail Ava Gardner, and critics hail On
Oh, is
the
this a
Beach
trailer? Are
as
you
one of
sure
the
this
most
is a
moving
trailer?
This is the
Pictures
original
in years.
trailer. I shit you not. When I look
Moscow,
up the trailer for
applause
this
for
film,
Gregory Peck,
this is
who
what
flies
comes
to
up.
Moscow for
Any
the
other
premiere,
trailer
and
is
TASS
like
News Agency calls the picture
DVD
Well, this is the
release
trailer
a fan
after the
made.
premiere.
Tokyo, Japan's
Because
royal
it-
family sees the film
It's
which
like all the
Tokyo
reaction
critics
of the
call
premiere.
An unprecedented
Yeah, they had the
event in
premiere.
motion
This is the
picture
trailer
history.
for general release. That
Stockholm,
just, you know, what
a
people would
brilliant
see.
movie.
says the Stockholm press, as huge crowds led by Sweden's King Gustav VI acclaim On the Beach.
Stop.
Gustav
Melbourne,
even loved it.
Australia's highest dignitaries, led by Premier Bolte, attend the premiere, and the Melbourne Age proclaims,
On the Beach leaves you breathless.
It's a
Tremendous
huge
power
movie
and
for
impact.
Australia.
Hollywood, biggest star turnout in years, Cary Grant, Fred Astaire,
Oh, Cary
Dinah
Grant was
Shore,
there. Man,
George
this
Montgomery,
movie
Tony
would have been a lot
Perkins,
better with Cary
Shirley
Grant in it.
MacLaine,
One of the most important pictures
Yes.
ever made.
In
shouts the
any
Los
role.
Angeles Herald Express.
High Noon Champion, home of the brave, the men, the keen mutiny, the defiant ones. Stanley Kramer, who made these outstanding screen achievements. Climaxes his brilliant career with a
So many
motion picture
climaxes.
that has started the film goes all over the world. On the beach. As a book, On the
Based
beach.
on the
was
book
an
by
international
Neville
sensation. Now the motion picture becomes an international triumph, the first worldwide premiere in history.
Is it really the first worldwide premiere in history?
It seems that way. The car
I guess it's
racing.
milestone in that way.
God damn, that song was stuck in my head so hard after this film.
I know, I've been singing it. Yeah.
It's
It's a good song.
Look, they pushed us too far. They didn't think
pushed
we'd
us
fight
too
no matter
far.
what they did. And they were
What is the
wrong.
movie
We
starting?
fought, we expunged them. We didn't do such a bad job on ourselves.
We were all doomed, you know. The whole
Oh, you know what? I
silly,
probably should have
drunken,
picked this
pathetic lot
scene.
of us.
That was my
We
favorite
haven't
scene.
got a chance.
Oh, really? Well, we're
But
watching
it was in the
now.
trailer, so it's like we're watching it now.
There is hope. There has to be hope.
Here's hope.
There's always hope.
There's always hope.
Did you put me to bed?
My God, this is like
I
a
arrived
10-minute
at that
trailer.
introduction. I asked Peter
It's
Mary,
literally
and,
just these two scenes, and then it's over.
Oh.
I'm afraid I was a bit of a mess.
Drank too much brandy. Passed out.
So they bragged about the movie and then showed you nothing about the movie. And it's like, come see the movie.
It's the greatest film on earth.
You know,
Justice.
I've never had it happen quite like that before. My
I will say though, this trailer made me expect more from this movie actually, because it was like bragging it up so much. I was like, oh, this is gonna be
I also
great.
feel ashamed.
Yeah, this is gonna be something. I didn't know what to expect, but I was expecting a little more than what I got. The biggest story of our time. Well, best picture of the year, hopefully.
Yeah, maybe it was. Maybe it
Beautifully
was.
made, remarkably absorbing, vastly important. It's too short.
Most important predictor ever produced. I don't know about that.
One of the most important contributions to motion pictures in 40 years. At the time, yes. On the Beach, produced and directed by Stanley. If you've never seen another motion picture in your life, you must see
this.
On
Should
the
we end the show?
Beach. Yeah.
Should we just like review this and then end it?
And be done with it?
Call her a podcast. Yeah. Yeah. Later.
Yeah. So that's it. We're done. Great. Have a good night.
I'm depressed that Cary Grant wasn't in this movie. He could have played Anthony Perkins or Gregory Peck's role better, I think. I did not like
Anthony Perkins' character was supposed
he was
to be
awful.
Australian.
Really?
Yeah.
I wish they would have hired some rando Australian to play his, because I did not enjoy his character or his performance. It felt very forced and
he was the second lead of
amateurish,
the film.
quite frankly. And I know
he was the
he's a
B
good
story.
actor and everything, but yeah, the two male leads were just dull. And Fred Astaire was good, but
he was good for the like few parts, and then around the end he was just like stone faced because he knew he was gonna die.
Get a car driver.
Yeah, I don't even when that car driving the Australian Grand Prix scene happened, I was like, wait.
Cars exploding everywhere.
What is happening? When point was a race talked about in this film? Like
People are dying left and right.
Well, they had nothing to lose at that point.
They don't
so
care.
They just gave it their all, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
why don't you take us through the old plot? Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that, shall we? So on the beach, it's the year 1964, after a devastating nuclear war. In the northern hemisphere, the USS Sawfish, an American nuclear submarine, navigates the coast of Australia, where survivors are believed to be docking at the port of Melbourne. Lieutenant McCander.
The actual sawfish is a native creature.
Oh, in Australia. Interesting. Apparently, the number 623 on the sub is like the designation for the only nuclear or one of few nuclear submarines that the U.S. has. But yeah, they mainly made this movie because of the Royal Navy of Australia that helped them out with their submarines as props because the U.S. Navy was not willing to. But yeah, so they're docking to the port of Melbourne. Lieutenant Commander Dwight Towers, played by Gregory Peck, and his crew await the arrival of the radioactive winds that they docked from the north that will eventually end all of life. The Australian government and scientific community requests Towers and his crew to embark on another mission, and they're tasked with checking radiation levels and investigating a mysterious Morse code signal near San Diego, California.
So they're basically just waiting for the poison to reach them, essentially. It's going to be everywhere. The winds are going to take
they got like
the
6
nuclear
months
fallout.
or something like that. They got 6 months, and they're sent on like a 4-month course to go to California to be like, listen, there's beeping. Somebody might be there.
6 months seems like a long time if it's as bad as it seems like it was.
Yeah.
It's some time. It's more time than you'd expect. I mean, it's an interesting... I feel like the execution wasn't as good as the idea for this particular movie.
Yes, like it's the concept is solid. The execution was lacking. And
like the whole movie takes place after the movie. Like, the movie's the big nuclear war, but we don't see any of that.
No, generally,
we
yes,
just get the...
generally. The movie's the big nuclear war, but this movie's about the fallout after the nuclear war, specifically what'll happen to humanity in a fallout. Like this is the reality, the dark reality of it all.
I just wanted more from that idea than this movie gave us. Of its time, perhaps.
Yeah. So yeah, the Australian government and their scientific community request Towers and his crew to embark on another mission. They are tasked with checking radiation levels and the mysterious Morse code signal that's near San Diego, California. Australian Ensign Peter Holmes, Anthony Perkins, is assigned as the liaison officer for the mission. As Tower copes with his personal losses and impending doom, Peter and his wife, Mary, played by Donna Anderson, throw a party to lift his spirits. Moira Davison, played by Ava Gardner, is brought in to distract Towers, and an unexpected bond begins to form between them. However, Towers remains devoted to his late wife and children back in Connecticut, whom are surely dead.
Surely,
Towers finds
but
himself
yeah.
surely,
Yeah.
Towers finds himself struggling to reconcile with their loss and the growing feelings he has for Moira. I kind of feel like those feelings and stuff were kind of like that's great screenshot of Fred Astaire though. I love this one.
It is.
So yeah, they all
Cool,
have their
man.
party.
That's 50s cool right there. Like,
Yeah, that's 50s cool. Getting drunk, cigarette in hand, fucking
yeah,
sweet noir lighting.
not giving a shit. Get your suit on. Yeah, man.
Yeah, that was the scene from the trailer where, there's still hope. We gotta have hope. It's like, hope for what?
He's like, nah, because he's the smart one. He's like the scientist in the bunch, and he's like,
yeah,
nah.
he's like, listen, death's coming, so we're on a clock.
Yeah.
So yeah,
get your affairs in
these
order.
Guys, yeah, get your affairs in order. Exactly. Like, what else you got to do? So yeah, Lieutenant Towers sets out on the mission north without informing Moira, who later discovers Towers where Osborne, played by Fred Astaire, the scientist accompanying the crew. The USS Sawfish arrives at Point Barrow, Alaska. Oh yeah, this is where I realized, are they smoking on a submarine? They are.
Yeah, they sure were.
They should not be.
Doesn't seem like a good use of oxygen. But they don't plan on staying down long either. They're not evading anybody or anything. I don't even know why they keep going under the water.
Like, to avoid the radiation dust, apparently.
Okay.
There's radiation clouds above the water, so they go under it to avoid it, I guess, to avoid the exposure.
True, but they're still in a submarine, whether they're above the air or not, or water or not, but whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, the USS Sawfish eventually heads out and arrives at Point Barrow, Alaska, where they find radiation levels are intensifying. They then explore the Erie Desert. I'm a little behind on my screenshots here, but let's see. Yeah. Oh, wait, yeah.
There.
I think... No, that's right. This is the point. Okay, yeah. So they find that they explore the Erie deserted city of San Francisco. This is the point where Ralph Swain's character, played by John Malone, a crew member with the family in San Francisco, he deserts the sub and remains at his hometown.
This is where this scene is where the movie starts to get good.
Yes, this is the moment I got into the film, is when this guy Ralph Swain is like, I'm out of here, and they're like, whoa, what's he doing? How did he get out? He's like, he jumped in the torpedo tube basically and swam out. It's like, how did he do this? But this is where we actually get my favorite scene of the film, one of my favorites at least.
Captain, I didn't mean any disrespect or anything yesterday. I want you to understand that, but
it was a good one.
This was my second favorite. To have it than in Australia. You know what I mean?
Yeah, mine too. Because we both had the same favorite scene, so
it's just the very next scene after this one. The two best scenes are back to back.
Yeah.
We won't be coming back.
I know.
You'll get pretty sick. Have you got anything?
You'll get pretty sick.
I got 200 drugstores to choose from.
200 drugstores. That's gonna keep me going.
Good luck.
For what? That's what I'm saying. You're fishing for what, sir? There's no fish. Or at least there shouldn't be.
There could be fish.
You think?
Why not? Yeah.
I feel like a lot of fish would die due to the, absolute waste of water. So yeah, that was basically my favorite scene.
Yeah, that's a good scene. It's just funny because he's just sitting there on a boat fishing and the sub pops up.
Yeah. He's like, and they just speak to them through the speaker. How you doing?
How you feeling?
Just doing fine,
Yeah, his stomach was upset last night.
Yeah, his stomach was upset. That could have been something I ate. Could have been the seawater I drank swimming over. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, how's it look over there? He's like, there's a lot of dead people. I went to go see my folks.
Everyone. As far as I know, I stopped looking. He's like, I saw a few, stopped looking.
Yeah, once you see one, you just kind of you don't want to look anymore. But like
Yeah.
you're walking in San Francisco, California, I feel like you can't go.
There's
It's
no
like no
one.
wonder he's fishing on the boat. Like anywhere else on land's probably smell like ass.
Yeah, just dead corpses everywhere.
Right. So yeah, Tower bids him farewell, and he understands Swain's desire to die in familiar surroundings. Like I totally got that scene. I was like, yeah, if I had
Like, we're
just
not
gotten
coming
from
back.
Australia, it's like I don't really want to be on a sub for like an extended like month or two when I have
Nah.
3 full months left. Like I'm just gonna say fuck it and walk around. Like this movie made me really think about this type of stuff, and I was like not prepared, but at the same time, it's like it's important to think about this in a sense, but it's like, it's like what would you
Oh
do
yeah,
in that scenario?
it's effective in making you think about certain things. So it is an effective movie in some
Yeah.
ways. I have mixed feelings. Anyway,
Yeah, I know.
continue.
It's like it's a movie with a very very important message. It is just delivered in the
Mm-hmm.
driest, flattest tone possible. Um, and
Maybe
yeah,
that's
since
the
we go
point, because it's just like everyone's just feeling this dread.
Yes, I also feel like
Yeah,
that's a bit of the point too. Like the more I thought about, like in my initial interactions with this film, I was like, eh. But the more I'm thinking about it, I'm like,
so bored. Yeah,
there's
yeah,
something more
exactly
to
right.
this, you know.
Yeah,
But yeah, we go from the submarine scene to them kind of just like radio still being gibberish, and then we get to this great
my
scene,
favorite
which
scene.
is yeah, both of our favorite scenes, hands down. We agreed here.
Somebody ought to write a history of the war.
What are you bucking for? A whole chapter to yourself?
Whole chapter to
I
yourself.
doubt anyone could put it all together.
Well, if they do, I'd like to read it. I was in it for a while. I don't know anything about it.
I don't even know who started it.
I wish somebody had stopped it. Well, the people on Mars probably saw what happened. When things cool off, they'll probably come down and take over.
Things cool up.
Any chance?
Well, it takes over.
We
Yeah.
might have the means of paying our corpse a
Tell me,
visit.
Vulcans.
I shouldn't advise it for a long time. Who do you think started it? The war? Albert Einstein. You're kidding.
Yeah.
Do you really want to know who I think started the war? Yeah. Why? Well, you're an egghead, aren't you?
You're pretty smart, aren't you?
Who would ever have believed that human beings would be stupid enough to blow themselves off the face of the earth?
Who would think?
I don't believe it even now. Well, we didn't want a war. We didn't start it. Come on now, how did it start? The trouble with you is you want a simple answer. There isn't any. The war started when people accepted the idiotic principle that peace could be maintained by arranging to defend themselves with weapons they couldn't possibly use.
That's the best
Without
line in
committing
the film right
suicide.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Best line in
The
film.
irony here, and
Wrap yourself in a blanket of insanity. That's like, there you go.
so do we like put paper bags over our heads? No, the irony here is out of the two movies we watched with Fred Astaire in it, I liked him more in this film.
Mm-hmm.
But he won an award for being in the other film.
The other film.
Yeah. The other film was
What other
Towering
film?
Inferno.
Fred Astaire wasn't in that.
Yes, he was.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was.
Who did he play?
He was the con man.
It's a con man in the Towering Inferno?
We'll get to it.
Okay.
So yes, yeah, that was basically the scene there. We'll get back to this real quick. So yeah, heading to the San Diego area, Lieutenant Thunderstorm Hart McGuire, the radio officer, ventures ashore in a radiological suit to investigate the Morse code signal. He discovers that the signal originates from a silent radio room in a power station, which, you know, who's turned on the power is the one question I had going through my mind throughout this whole scene. But ultimately, he finds that the radio signal is a broken window shade cord that is wrapped around a partially empty Coca-Cola bottle, creating the gibberish Morse code signals that brought them all there. When the breeze blows through the window, that's basically it tapping away. Thunderstorm rectifies the situation and sends a message to the sub letting them know, what happened before turning off the lights and returning back to the submarine. With their fate seemingly sealed, the Sawfish crew returns to Melbourne. Towers reunites with Moira at her father's farm, cherishing.
It's definitely not Cary Grant.
It's definitely no Cary Grant. Towers receives a phone call informing him that the radiation has reached Brisbane, resulting in the death of all the U.S. Navy personnel there, and he's promoted to Admiral of the remaining U.S. Navy personnel in Australia. Heck of a way to get a promotion. We then get Lieutenant Towers.
Time. Like, you're promoted, now die.
Now die. Good luck. You're the king of the world. Lieutenant Towers and Moira attend the Australian Grand Prix.
It's just so out of place.
It's so out of place. It was just
took me out of the movie, actually.
It was just like, whoa, we're in a race all of a sudden, and I'm watching it. Admittedly, this was the movie that got me going, like, whoa, holy shit. So yeah, it's where Osborne participates as basically speed racer. He's like, I'm not kidding. Many racers with nothing left to lose meet insane fatal accidents. And basically, like, seriously, he's driving Mach 5 right there, a white car with number 5 on it. He's driving Mach 5. After he's murdered the entire competition, Fred Astaire's Osborne has won his speed racer. Literally
Speed
murdering
wins.
the entire
Yay,
competition.
Speed!
Yeah, Anthony Perkins with his psycho smile.
And then he drives by after he's won, and he just like sees like the wreckage of the people who like died during the race. And he just kind of
explosions.
Takes his helmet off, looks sad for a second, and then smiles and drives on.
This explosion is
so
huge,
weird.
Dude. I was shocked with it. And Fred Astaire's just like, yep, I'm just go speed racers grow. Anyway, Towers
this
and Moira.
fishing scene I have a problem with.
Yes,
I love the waltzing Matilda song, the singing. The singing's beautiful.
It's the scene starts. They embark on a fishing trip to Norbthong, where the fishing grounds are crowded with people seeking solace.
Where
no one
apparently they opened the fishing season for trout early, so they're all fishing for trout. So
is that why they're there?
This is not a scene where anyone is seriously fishing for trout. This isn't like salmon or shad or Gaspereau or a fish that's swimming upriver, not even worrying about feeding, not worrying about sounds, not worrying about predators, just trying to get to the spawning destination. That's the only time when you could have 1 million people singing and being loud, kids jumping in the water, and actually be fishing. Like, you cannot fish trout with all of this noise. Mm-hmm. There's no trout. There is no trout in any of this stretch of river right now because it's really freaking noisy. And if there is, they're hiding. They're not feeding. The ridiculousness of the non-fishing took me out of it a bit too. I'm like, they could have just made everyone playing and having a good, and maybe they don't care. They don't care about catching fish, but all they had to do was not say it was trout, and I wouldn't have been bothered. But I'm like, that is not trout fishing of any sort. So just a nitpick.
Okay, so like I kind of agree because I was watching this scene and I'm like, there's no way in hell there are any fish in this river. They would have all, if there was any fish, they would have been scared by the chaos that is happening around it right now, and they would avoid it.
It's pure chaos and noise. Yeah.
So ultimately this scene transitions to a stormy weather where Towers and Moira end up heading back to their place, and the drunken guys are still singing Waltzing Matilda. That also took me out of the scene in the movie. I'm like, where are these guys singing Waltzing Matilda? Like, I get that they've played this song about 7,500 times.
They just went inside.
In different variations. They play the song like in different variations at every point. Like it drives home the dread, It does, yeah. But yeah. Basically, Lieutenant Towers and Moira share a romantic evening in their room, seeking comfort in each other's arms. While in the building, the same drunken river revelers sing Waltzing Matilda, a theme played throughout the film, gradually succumbing to unconsciousness. much like my brain wanted to at this point in the film. Returning from their fishing trip, Towers learns that
the best is
seaman.
over.
Yeah, basically.
It just putters out. It starts
well-
really slow and boring and just putters out at the end.
It starts doing the Lord of the Rings ending. I thought this movie ended 3 times before it actually ended.
There were better spots where it could have ended, really, than where it did.
There's a good hour of this film that probably could have been trimmed out. But yeah, Seaman Ackerman, played by Joe McCormick, has developed radiation poisoning. As the radioactive winds have finally reached Melbourne, the symptoms will soon spread, and that's basically like the onset of haunting scene after haunting scene. We then get this haunting scene again of people gathering around with the Salvation Army, having prayers. There's still time, brother, still time to save your humanity. And then it cuts to the Queen Victoria Memorial Hospital, where we see Towers in the back of a Rolls Royce, and he's driving past the citizens of Melbourne as they line up for their government-issued suicide pills, which is just like, wow, Yeah. Like this was probably the one scene in the film that like stuck with me the most. I was like, what are all these people lined up for? And then I put 2 and 2 together, and I was like,
there's a lot of good stuff, and they don't hit you over the head with it for sure. It's a pretty subtle movie, which I do kind of appreciate that.
So Towers must ultimately make a difficult decision regarding his crew and Moira. Saying his goodbyes to Osborne, who eventually chooses to die in his Mach 5 by carbonide poisoning. Also, side note, these two, the like Australian general that wanted to like give his slip his secretary the D, and she wasn't having it, and then by the end of it, she's like, "Yeah, why not? Let's just have a good time." It was like, could have been without that.
Me too. I would have rather it have been like some old woman and some young guy. They're just like, "Hey, what do you think?" That would have been funny. Like they're a little more uncommon of the time. No, I shouldn't say that.
They cut back to the town square. You see noticeably less people, and then we jump back to Julian Osborne, where he's putting on the final decal of his car, and he's going out the old carbon monoxide way, locking the garage, turning on the key, revving the engine, and saying goodbye to the ghost, or saying hello to the ghost, I guess you could say. Towers addresses his crew who voted to head for home. He realizes responsibility lies with his crew and contacts Moira, who's been assisting Peter and caring for Mary.
Screw that. What a shitty ending. I was like, ooh, Cary Grant wouldn't have done that. Cary Grant would have stayed with his woman.
Yeah, it's like, you know what, boys, you take the ship, you go ahead. You don't need me to operate the ship. You know where home is. Like, you don't need me to give you orders. I'm just the order guy. I'll stay on the beach and watch the sunset with this woman that I've been getting some from, Or B, she hops in and goes with you. Because, like, what, right? Like, it didn't make sense. But yeah, Moira's helping, it's basically been assisting Peter in caring for Mary, who struggles, as she has been throughout the entire movie, which is the consistent theme with her character, to accept the fact that they're going to die. Eventually, Mary regains clarity and prepares for the end by sharing a cup of tea laced with coma-inducing sedative. And that's the end of them, basically. Moira finds Towers at the dock. They embrace one last time as he explains that he loves her, but he must go with his crew. And they both understand that the relationship is now over, but are grateful for the time they had together, which is just garbage. Moira speeds along the coast to catch a final glimpse of Towers as the sawfish submerges for the last time, standing on a cliff. She gazes into the distance as the submarine disappears. Why she didn't just go with him, I'll never know. And then the final scenes take place.
Too, but I mean, who wants to be in a submarine for your last friggin' days?
That's what I'm saying. Who wants to be in a fucking submarine for your last days?
I know. He was the worst lead character. I didn't like his decisions. I didn't really care for him as a character. Yeah, man. I don't know what I'm gonna say about this movie here when we.
And the final scenes take place days later, after the last remaining pockets of humanity have perished. The movie depicts an empty and desolate Melbourne, swept by the wind. The powerful image of a close-up banner seen previously at the Salvation Army appears,
time.
bearing the prophetic words, "There's still time, brother." The movie ends with the rise of more waltzing Matilda, leaving a lasting impact of haunting reality that humanity has
it's a
faced.
good final
its
shot.
tragic end. Yeah, good final shots. There was like really nice shots. There was some good compositions.
Good stuff. It's good stuff. I don't know what we're gonna say. All right. So, which performance would you hold up?
Oh, Fred Astaire.
Me too.
Yeah, Fred Astaire, big time. That's an award-winning performance from Fred Astaire, which is like.
I still can't believe he's in the Towering Inferno.
Yeah, he's in the Towering Inferno.
All right. Well. Oh wait. Oh, I think I do know who he was in the Towering Inferno. All right. We'll come back to that. Setting aesthetic was fine. The car chase was looked pretty good at times, not so good at times.
It's just like the setting and aesthetic. It was like the set. I mean, I don't know if we're talking like time period setting wise, like it's an interesting concept because not a lot of movies are done after a Fallout. You know, you know, you don't get to experience this, so it's a dreadful film that makes you almost in a way feel like the drawing dread of radiation poisoning.
And they must have emptied those streets to get those shots, like that shot from the submarine of San Francisco. You see like a whole block, and it's empty.
I got some movie morsels that I'll touch on.
Oh, I bet there's some morsels
like
about that. So why don't we just hit those then?
So for movie morsels for On the Beach, 1959. I didn't write that down, but either way, it's a late 50s film. This was Hollywood's first large-scale film to address the possibility of nuclear Armageddon. So
that's pretty big.
That's why it's a milestone film. This is a note I found interesting because as you've heard, you know, we've got the WGA and the SAG-AFTRA on strike. And I feel like this is an important bit of information in sort of a theme with the strike that's going on and why strikes are necessary. This was Ava Gardner's first film as a freelance actress after completing her 20-year studio contract at MGM, where she had worked for a weekly salary and did not benefit financially from being loaned to other studios. As a freelance actress, she was free to choose her roles and negotiate her salary. So basically 20 years under MGM and she was getting paid pennies. So
she's better than a hero. She's a union man.
She's a union man, exactly. It is rumored that the guards at each end of the Golden Gate Bridge were paid $500 each to stop cars for a minute to get footage of an empty bridge.
Wow.
Special garments are designed to protect personnel.
I don't even get permission though. Just pay the guys at the ends of the.
Slip them a couple of fives. I mean, if you get $500 to stop a car for 1 minute, would you do it? I would. Be like, I'll just stand here.
Sure.
Just one minute. Hang on.
1 sec, bud.
So yeah, special garments are designed to protect personnel from radioactive contamination hazards. However, no suit will protect you against certain ionizing radiation hazards, example gamma rays and X-rays. In reality, no radiation suit existed then, nor even now, that would have protected the crew member that went ashore in highly radioactive San Diego. And if you notice during that scene, his ankles were not like tucked in to his boots or anything like that. They were just like open, loosey-goosey. It was just like, okay.
Yeah. Well, you see, even when they go to Chernobyl now, like with modern day technology in their suits, they're still like, we got like an hour. Yeah, even in this big crazy suit, and then we have to get out of here.
In and out, right? For the final scene, director Stanley Kramer asked the population of the city of Melbourne to stay at home so that the streets remained deserted. Kramer used radio and newspaper nets to get this request out.
Yeah.
The tune played repeatedly throughout the film is the iconic Australian folk song Waltzing Matilda. It tells the story of a swag man, Australian for hobo, who steals a sheep and commits suicide rather than accept capture and imprisonment. Spooky. On the Beach is a book by Australian British author Neville Shute, and he sold 100,000 copies in its first 6 weeks. It's considered a high bookseller of the year at the time.
I have a feel this one was better in book form. I might have to read that book.
That's okay. Now we're getting into the meat. We're getting to the meaty gritty of this film right now. Neville Shute originally collaborated with Stanley Kramer on the film, but soon realized that many of his ideas were not being incorporated, so he distanced himself from the project. He was absolutely enraged by the final film. Some say that his hatred of the movie contributed to a fatal stroke a month after the film's premiere. Shute was only 60 when he died. So it's like, oh, now I want to read this book. Gregory Peck privately agreed with Neville Shute that the film was a watered-down version of the novel, but had to show solidarity with his director, Stanley Kramer. This is interesting. The film had its world premiere on December 17th, 1959, in more than 20 cities worldwide, including Moscow. It was the first time an American film had a premiere in the Soviet Union. The special premiere in Moscow was held at a workers' club with the attendance of 1,200 Soviet dignitaries, the Foreign Press Corps, diplomats, U.S. ambassadors, Lewin Thomas and Gregory Peck and his wife traveled to the Soviet Union for the premiere. The Hollywood premiere was attended by many celebrities, including some of the film stars such as Fred Astaire, Anthony Perkins, and director Stanley Kramer. The New York premiere was attended. The New York premiere was attended by Mayor Robert F. Wagner. The London premiere was attended by Yakov Malik, the Soviet ambassador to the UK. Ava Gardner.
You know this. This was in the trailer.
Yeah, I know.
There was King such and such too.
The Japanese royal family attended the Tokyo premiere. Swedish King Gustav VI Adolf attended the Stockholm premiere, and the Melbourne premiere was attended by premiere of Victoria Henry Bolt. Basically everything that was said in that trailer. It's just the fact that they had all premiere on the same day around the world. It's just something that doesn't happen at all anymore because it's always like separated times and releases. The film still did poorly at the box office, though, resulting in a loss of $700,000, according to the studio records. Wow. And then the final morsel for this one, the made-for-television remake in 2000, originally airing on Showtime, is in many ways more disturbing to view. It is far more graphic in its depiction of death and destruction in San Francisco. Many of its characters are portrayed as grittier, angrier. Also, the terrible effects of radiation sickness is quite realistically depicted with some characters. So there's a made-for-TV 2000 readaptation.
This is another movie, the kind of movie that could use a remake as well. Not that I have faith that a TV movie these days is going to do that, but
I would see a feature film reversion of this. Anyway, cinematography by Giuseppe Rocuno, edited by Frederick Knudsen. Yeah, we'll say Knudsen. Music by Ernest Gold. Release date December 17th, 1959. Running time of 134 minutes. Budget of $2.3 million. Box office of $2.2 million. Although over the years, I think it's managed to get a whole global collection of like $11 million since the time of its release up till about now. So yeah, that's On the Beach.
Rewatchability. Not for me.
No, I honestly, I was like, should I rewatch this movie before we get into this podcast? Maybe I just wasn't paying attention enough. And then when I did my synopsis breakdown of it, all the stuff, I was like, you know what? I don't think I really need to. I think I actually gained more about the movie from reading the synopsis than I did actually watching the film. And I don't think me rewatching it, I'm just going to catch anything new.
Agreed. Does it hold up?
No, it doesn't, which is a shame because it's a film that's really important and has very important themes and should be watched, but like it just doesn't hold up in the sense of being like a movie that's going to capture your attention and make you pay attention to the very important messages and themes that are within this film.
It's a tough one for me because it has some good stuff. Some
Right?
points.
It's got some golden nuggets of information in this film, but it's just like served on a shit platter, and you're just like, okay, you know.
No, it doesn't really. It doesn't. But
Presentation
there's
is
a
everything.
few good scenes. Yeah, it doesn't hold up. But it's like a C plus.
Yeah, like out of all the films that don't hold up, it's definitely kind of the top of the list. You know, maybe we'll discuss that in the final episode, but like,
yeah, we'll have a recap episode.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll add that to the C pile. Oh my. All right, over to Theater 2. The Towering Inferno from 1974, starring Steve McQueen, Paul Newman, the reuniting of Faye Dunaway and William Holden, and directed by John Dillerman. You remember last time we saw William Holden and Faye Dunaway together, Murphy?
Yes, that was the network, wasn't it?
It was the network.
Yes, it was.
Luckily, they were not a romantic pairing in this particular movie, so they were much better. I enjoyed both of them.
Oh,
much
they were
more
the
in
romantic pair in that movie, weren't they? I kind of forgot who William Holden was in that movie. I remember Faye Dunaway, but like William Holden, I did not put two and two together until you actually mentioned that right now. So,
is William Holden the star of our first season though? Because we've seen him 3 times. Have we seen any other actor 3 times? Or any other director 3 times? Because he was also in Bridge on the River Kwai. He was the guy who escaped. It has to go back in.
I'm gonna have to. Yeah, that's something we'll have to review on the last episode and see. That's a
William
good
Holden
question, though. I didn't think that.
Be the star. Be the star of this. He's in a lot of movies. That's what that tells you, and some good ones.
Steve McQueen and Paul Newman race against time as one tiny spark becomes a night of blazing
It's a big pissing contest between those two for this movie.
The Towering Inferno.
It's out of control. It's coming your way.
They're just like, I want lead billing. No, I want lead billing. I want more lines. No, I want more lines. They eventually got the exact same amount of lines. And
really?
McQueen was pissed about that, yeah.
McQueen and Newman were like that? That's funny.
Yeah, throughout the entire movie, they were like fucking button heads throughout the whole film.
Steve McQueen.
Dude, this film...
That's when men were men, Murphy. 2 manly men like that can't get along.
They can't share the lead.
Oh yeah, Fred Astaire is that guy.
Robert Wagner. The Towering Inferno.
I can't believe O.J.
We've seen Robert Wagner twice.
So you can stop worrying about me.
Wasn't Paul Newman in
I'll never let you go anywhere without
Soylent Green?
I'll be back with the whole fire department.
Oh, that scene was so wild. That scene blew my mind. I was like, what the fuck?
There's a lot of scenes that are crazy in this movie.
I've never been like, what the fuck was that? So much in the movie that I was watching this film. Like,
this movie is very
all
70s.
on board.
It's
very 70s, but so good.
Like, in a good way. I mean, that's a good thing. It's like gritty and real.
Step by step. Floor by floor. This is a race against time to save hundreds of people trapped
70s was the decade where I felt like directors and filmmakers were like, I don't want it to feel like a movie. I want it to feel like you're watching something real at that. It's an explosion.
The Towering Inferno.
Basically the final act right there.
Now this movie was a pleasant surprise. Like, I
Wasn't
didn't think
it
it was gonna be
though?
this good.
Me either. I was
Again,
like,
a bit
okay,
of a slow start, but not unbearingly so. Like on the beach, like I would have said it on the beach held up if it wasn't for that start. That start just killed it. But this one, it didn't kill it. But we both said the same thing. We both said we weren't really feeling it until the exact same scene, which I think was the scene I picked as my favorite, maybe.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, that's when the movie takes off, and from there, you're in for a
yeah.
ride.
No,
It's
I completely
heart-stopping
agree.
action, man.
I went into this film being like, how good is this like old film about a burning tower gonna be? Um, and the first like 35 minutes, I was like, yeah, nope, this is pretty standard 70s. Yep, nope, tropish, get it. And then yeah, that one scene where it just kicked off the whole film, and I was like, okay, I can't handle this. I can't handle this, Paul Newman. What are you doing? That is not stable. What are you doing? I was like that for the whole scene, and they just were like, everybody's gonna play, climb down this
It's great.
like rail.
You expect something
And
to go wrong that entire scene. It's not like one of those scenes where you're like, oh yeah, this is gonna seem like it's gonna go wrong and it won't. That whole time you're like, this is not gonna go good for somebody. And
somebody's gonna die. I would just and like and it was even.
and
I don't think anybody had died up until at that point in the film either. Technically,
at least
like
you don't see it, maybe.
maybe you don't see it, but I think like the first deaths were like Robert Wagner's character and that secretary, and I think that happens shortly after the explosion because they're done fornicating. Like, oh man, and it was like that. What like it was just like the shock to that shocked, and then there was like you're like, and then there was more shock, and it just didn't stop until the end of the
I know,
film, and
and
you're
he's
just
just
sitting
like
there like,
Stephen Queen's just done, and he just goes and sits down, and then they just like they want to talk to you, so he gets up and goes and talks to him because he's been up for like the whole fucking night, and they're just like, yeah, you're the only one that's has the qualifications to go back in, so we
yeah,
need you to
yeah,
go back in. He's just like,
it's
like, but it's just very carefully made as far as the firefighting aspects go. I think that'll
yes,
probably come up in your morsels, but they even thank before the movie even starts. They thank firefighters. They're like, "This is for the
yeah,
firefighter," and then they sort of do that
yeah,
again.
yeah. No, they like this is A1 the firefighter movie. If there was ever a movie about firefighters, this is the movie about firefighters.
This is the one.
Like,
Yeah.
and like the
Not
whole time
that
I'm watching, I
Backdraft
kept,
movie or whatever, starring Sylvester Stallone or whatever. I don't know. Like, remember that one?
or the one that's
The
like
forest fire or
it
something.
stars The Rock, and I
Was it
think the
Stallone?
most like there's a Rock film that's basically the Towering Inferno, but like there's this big
Oh, really?
climactic scene where he jumps from one building to another because he's the fucking
course he
Rock,
does.
you know.
Steve
And
McQueen is
apparently he's like
way
missing
cooler than The Rock, and he doesn't go
so
jumping
much
off the
cooler.
building.
Yeah, no, dude, Steve McQueen. Like the moment he entered this film, I was like, this guy rocks. This guy's so
Yeah,
cool. I think
because
this
he's
is
all
technically
business. He's just
I think this is technically my first Steve McQueen film. Like, I don't think I've seen him really in anything that I can remember. Um, what a boss!
I think
What a
I've seen him in one
boss.
prior movie. Yeah, is he in Cool Hand Luke?
I don't know.
Paul Newman is. I wonder if they're in that together too. Anyway, but yeah, he was awesome in
Yeah.
it. Paul Newman was good in it too.
Well, let's
And
get
I
into
even
this
liked
Wemyss
Faye Dunaway and
violation of
William
a
Holden.
synopsis.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
get into
let's
this
do it.
Wemyss violation waiting to happen, shall we? So yeah, the Towering Inferno.
See, I was out during this first scene because it's just like a 5-minute helicopter ride. The first 5 minutes of this movie is just watching this helicopter. They're like,
Yeah. So
didn't
yeah,
need it.
Towering Inferno, 1974. Architect Doug Roberts, Paul Newman's character, is returning to beautiful San Francisco for the dedication of the Glass Tower, which is a groundbreaking skyscraper designed for owner James Dunn, who is played by William Holden. Based on the novel The Tower by Richard Martin Stern, obviously, this film was. And to those who gave their lives so that others might live, to the firefighters of the world. This picture is gratefully dedicated. So yeah, we start off with a kind of janky shot of the tower. Like you can tell it's like a superimposed image because the tower is kind of shaking with the camera a little bit. Like the two towers in this shot, they shake a little bit with the movement of the camera, because obviously they're not real. But yeah, at a soaring 138 stories and standing 1,800 feet or 550 meters tall, it is the tallest building in the world. However, just for its grand opening, we get introduced to the characters of Newman, who's introduced to his character Faye Dunaway, who he has a relationship with. Fred Astaire's character, who's a con man. He's there to basically get the widower to sign over some money. We're introduced to the kids and their deaf mother.
Here's a little comparison, though. You care more about this little girl and this woman on the right here who ends up looking after her more than anybody on the beach, and they're not in this movie a whole lot. Like
I cared about a lot
scene
of
where
people
they're in
this
danger. You're like,
more.
Like, oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. And they don't even
like
have to be in
fingernails,
it much. They
chair,
real
just
people.
like I can't stop watching.
Yeah. And they surprise you. Like there's so many things in movies like while you're watching the scene you can tell how it's gonna end. In this movie it's not like that. It throws you for loops all over the place.
Yeah. So basically the film starts to pick up when an electrical shortage happens in the basement. This basically sets off
shitty wiring
system. There's shitty wiring. They've got shitty wiring in the system. They don't
cut corners to save costs on your freaking wiring.
They got they don't. It's not good enough to. What was it like?
Bet you there's asbestos in the walls too. 1974.
Betcha.
You bet there was. Half of that building's asbestos.
So yeah,
they got a lot of problems. Those firefighters are breathing in burning asbestos.
So we get this cute little scene between Roberts and Faye Dunaway's character. Roberts gets called down to the building because he becomes suspicious of the building's electrical engineer, Roger Simmons, played by Richard Chamberlain, who is the stepson of William Holden's character, or
and
son-in-law.
The worst. And the absolute worst.
An absolute cunt.
Oh yeah, and O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson's in this movie.
For some out of pocket reason, O.J. Simpson is in this movie. We're not going to talk much about that. So yeah, he happens to be in this film. He saves the cat. That was.
You don't want to talk about how O.J. Simpson's a great hero because he saves the kitty?
I mean, I don't feel like that's a. I mean, he saved.
You don't want to talk about the scene where O.J. Simpson's carrying out an unconscious woman?
It's probably not the first time he's done that. In fact, it's probably definitely not the first time he's done that. So yeah, Roberts becomes suspicious of the building's electrical engineer, Roger Simmons. Believing that he's cut corners during construction, Simmons insists that the building meets all safety standards, but Roberts remains unconvinced. Look at this cunt.
He's the worst.
Anyway, got a gathering of people waiting for the big opening.
He gets his, though. Friggin' karma.
Yeah. Does he ever, man? During the dedication ceremony, this is where
there's
we
Fred.
see first. Yeah, Fred Astaire's got his invite to the dedication ceremony. The public relations chief, Dan Bigelow, Robert Wagner's character, turns on all the tower lights to impress the guests and dignitaries. Unfortunately, this causes the electrical system to overload, and Roberts orders the lights to be shut off because he knows the electrical system's getting hot. But all these people.
He's so funny. There's he's like, what are you doing? They're like, yeah, we're turning all the lights on. He's like, why? Why would you do that? Why are all the lights on? I'm just like, oh, because the rich people wanted us to. He's like, well, stop it. Turn them off. He's like, well, I can't do that unless the rich people tell us to turn them off. And it's just like, well, like, at least turn some of them off. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's like, we don't need all of the lights. It's like the promenade. Leave the promenade on. Just the place is going to burn down. And, the fire department, they finally got the gist, so they're on their way. And then we get this scene. Okay, this is the one part of the film where I was like...
He dies, so he's the first death.
He's the first death, so he's technically the first death, yes. But I meant to get a screenshot of that closet, and apparently I guess I didn't. But the closet was filled with spray cans, dirty, like, paint rags. In fact, the power box just blows open, and a loose cable lands and the oil rags catch on fire immediately, and we're talking like bottom to like it's a Wemyss violation waiting to happen. This closet, basically.
This wouldn't pass muster these days.
But the thing
Secret
that
cabinet.
blows my
Come on
mind
now.
is that fire starts early in the afternoon. It's later in the evening at the promenade, and this closet's just been cooking. None of those cans have blown the door open. It's closed. It takes this poor son of a bitch to open the door for it to explode and then thus cause the big fire that ultimately engulfs the whole building.
I get it being a big building and everything, but nowadays, surely if there was a fire in a tower, they would evacuate the whole building pretty much immediately, if not immediately. Whereas in this one, they're like, it's okay, these 80 floors. The fire's only on these 2 floors for now. So you just go about your business. Don't worry about it. We'll let you know if there's a problem. It's just like, really? Is that really how they're doing this?
Yeah, he's like, there's a fire right now. He's like, it's fine. We'll be safe. It's like, no, that's number one. You fire? Okay, we get out of the building.
Put out the
Nobody gets
fire.
out of the building. Yeah, like that's
God.
It's common sense 101. I don't
just because you don't want to
understand.
disturb people. It's just like they'll be disturbed when they're on fire.
So yeah, the trouble begins when the power surge in the building's massive basement blows a circuit breaker in the basement, and unknown to everyone, the surge blows out another circuit breaker that was on the 81st floor. Like Wemyss would lose their shit at the state of that storage closet. As the fire department's called in to handle the situation on the 81st, Roberts and engineer Will Giddings, played by Norman Burton, attempt to control the situation, and tragically Giddings gets caught in the fire flash and is fatally injured. While Roberts and the fire department try to contain the spreading fire, 294 guests are trapped on the promenade room of the 135th floor. And every time they said promenade, all I could think of was Quark. Every time.
Oh, me too. Deep Space Nine every time.
Yeah. So yeah, Duncan, along with Senator Gary Parker, Robert Vaughn, and Mayor Robert Ramsey, directs the evacuation using the express elevators. However, the fire rapidly escalates, rendering the elevators unsafe. Duncan dismisses the need for an evacuation despite the increasing danger. Simmons admits to cutting corners during construction to stay within the budget, contributing to the severity of the fire. Panic then ensues as the electric fires continue to break out throughout the building, leading to a full-scale evacuation. Tragically, Bigelow and his secretary, Mistress Laurie, Susan Flannery, are killed when they become trapped in Bigelow's 65th floor office. Imagine just being like, they're like, did you leave a smoke running? And they like open the door and it's engulfed. And I feel like the first moment they had opened it, the fire wasn't that bad. Maybe they could have gotten through it, but they just kind of like pulled back and hung out and made it let it get worse. And they died for it. He's like, it's okay, I'm a 100-foot runner. He covers himself in wet towels, and then he runs directly into a chair and like catches himself on fire and like runs around on fire and then just falls to his death off of like that. And then she eventually like catches on fire and books it out the window and just dies herself. And you see this like flaming person falling from and I'm watching this and I just instantly got brought back to 2011 and I thought about like 9/11 and just like all the shit that happened in September and all the things I saw. And I was just like, whoa. So then I couldn't get that mentality out of my mind. And I'm just like, this is weirdly prophetic,
This is both movies we've seen Robert Wagner in this podcast. He's played the same arrogant fool. Like same with his character in the Pink Panther. Maybe that was his thing. Oh, here comes OJ to save the day. I feel so much better now.
Yeah. He's just dragging out an unconscious woman and the kids. And then like, where's the little sister, which I thought about too. And eventually Robert saves him. So yeah, Simon's missed cutting corners during construction, stay within budget, contributing to the severity of the fire. I read this. As Robertson's security chief, Harry Jennigan. Yeah, as Robertson's security chief, Harry Jennigan, rescue a family from the 80th floor, they become stranded due to collapsed stairwell. They must make a perilous climb up the promenade room to safety. This is your favorite scene, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So the movie takes off and becomes an awesome friggin' movie.
As soon as I heard the gas, I was like, "That's not good."
Gas line, get back.
Yes,
And then it just goes.
yeah, no time to react. And this twist of pipes is so weird that he's shimmying down. Like, this is slick that he actually
Yeah. It's
makes. Look at that.
like I'm watching this. I'm like, "That's gonna break. That's gonna break any minute.
Yeah.
What's he gonna do?" You know. Obviously, we can't play the whole scene, but you know.
Yeah, but that scene goes on, and the little boy goes down first, and then
Yeah. He saves the kid. Eventually, gets
he goes back
him
up
to
and
climb
brings
down.
the little girl down, and then
Which,
he's-
when he goes
they're trying
back
to
up,
convince
I was
the
like,
woman to
surely he can't climb back up that.
Yeah,
and
I know,
he
right?
does it, and I was like, oh my god, I
Yeah.
was so tense. And you know, they could have
Yeah.
really sold that scene if they had just like had the widower's shoe had fallen off, and they showed an overhead and the shoe bounce off the corridors. Like that would have just been the cherry on top of that whole scene for me personally.
The only thing I don't like about that
this.
scene, the only thing I don't like about that scene is it kind of shows its 70s morality, let's say, where it's like, of course this 10-year-old boy can do it, but surely an adult woman can't come down this thing. Like, she's a woman.
She's she's a
She would be
widower,
far
so
too
she's supposed to
afraid.
be, you know, in her
I
in her
know,
ages.
but
But yeah, you know, it was a little tropish. It was definitely 70s, but was it terrifying to watch?
on the
Yes.
beach was worse for it though, because like one of the characters in that, Ava Gardner's character, actually pulls the Uhura line from Star Trek. Frightened. I'm so frightened.
I loved how they kind of broke up the length of the stairwell scene by like showing people leaving and getting ground floor. And the whole time I'm seeing this scene, I'm like, these people are gonna sue the hell out of this guy. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen, you know. And yeah, and then it just continues with the chaos of these guys. Like, oh, we have to like get up there. There's the you know, the deaf woman who was saved by O.J. Simpson. I thought she was gonna die in this scene too. I was like, she's gonna slip and fall
Because of
She's
O.J.
too
Simpson?
Terrified.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
No. No, but she
didn't
makes it.
have
That's what's
the
crazy.
drums.
Exactly. Like, someone was gonna die in this scene. You thought for sure it was gonna be her, and no, they all make it, which I like. I like that you don't have to have a sacrificial lamb to make a scene have weight. You know, they just they just made the tension, and that's all, and made it believable. It was great.
Yeah, and they never let up with the tension. Like you think every scene they would introduce would be like, okay, it's just a little breather, but no, it's like, oh, this is an introduction to a new tension I didn't know. This is an introduction to a new fear I didn't realize I needed to have. We get introduced to these two firefighters who are just climbing the building. Eventually, the stairwell breaks below them, like another stairwell explosion. So they're like, the only way is up, so let's keep going.
It's true what they say in
fire
this movie,
suppression-
though. You never want to live above the 7th floor in any building.
With the fire suppression efforts becoming ineffective, the building loses all electrical power. This scene blew my mind because they thought they were going to get to a door, but there was just like a bucket of cement poured in front of the door, and it was hardened, and they couldn't get through it. And I'm like, who lets this much cement just dry? Who doesn't clean that up immediately? So they had to that was like they couldn't just open the door, and it led to this. Kind of
Who knows? Could have been every part of the fire because of the fire.
Maybe
melting some
there's
concrete. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe there's a wheelbarrow of wet concrete just sitting in the stairwell, and then the explosion knocked it over. But like it dried.
Yeah,
maybe. That was wrong. I don't know.
It was weird. Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, we won't get into the weeds of it, but yeah. We get this scene where the fire guys are having to rappel down, and this one firefighter's like, I can't do it, I'm too afraid. And McQueen's character's like, good, you're going first, because we don't want you falling on us. If you fall, you're going to go first.
Because you're going.
Yeah, you're going. So yeah, basically, the rooftop, they're trying to get to the rooftop, and a helicopter goes and
to blow the tanks. They want to blow the water tanks. Which has
that's
water in it, they think,
that's
to put
not
out the
yet.
fire.
No, that's at the end. This is the scene basically is they run a lottery to see who gets to go on the helicopter ride, and all the women and children basically go first. And Steve McQueen's telling these women, wait for the helicopter to land, and then these two women just run up onto the helipad as the chopper's coming down, and it loses control and blows up, and I'm just like, what the fuck was that? What the fuck was that? What just happened? I was so shocked
Madness
by the chaos of that scene, and I had no idea where this film was going to go after this point. I was like, what are they going to do? The rooftop rescue attempt fails when the helicopter crashes, setting the roof ablaze and preventing further rescue attempts from above. And the Navy rescue team set up breacher's buoy between the glass tower and the adjacent peerless building to evacuate guests. Faye Dunaway and the women that were supposed to go on the helicopter.
Slick, actually.
Yeah, the women on the helicopter.
So many
ingenious
methods they come up with to save people in this, and I just wondered while watching them if it's real. Like, I can't imagine here that ever happening. I'm like, there's no way if there was a fire here, they would rig this up. This wire with this bucket. Like, I don't know. It just seems like so innovative and prepared for the time.
It's a scenario that they're prepared for.
It's a big city.
They can't get them down, and they can't get them off from the top. Like, what's it called again? A buoy. Something. I'll read it again at some point. Breacher's buoy. That's what it's called. Anyway, yeah, we get this also the scene where the women and the children were put into the only working elevator with this really beautiful shot fade Dunaway. But that's going well until a fire explodes and it gets like knocked off its rails. At which point the widower, who had saved the children and gone through the freaking crazy stairwell scene, gets knocked out of the elevator and falls to her death.
That was crazy. I did see sort of the elevator thing come. As soon as I got on the elevator, I was just like, "Oh, you don't want to be on that elevator." I was like, it didn't seem like it was going to be a super smooth ride for that elevator.
Big glassy elevator. It's like, no.
Sketchy. The fire was spreading at that point, and you're just like, really? They really think this entire elevator shaft is fine, eh? All right, go for it. But it was the external. It's the scenery elevator. It was interesting.
So yeah, basically that thing breaks. So McQueen's character Roberts, they basically devises a gravity brake for the external scenic elevator to evacuate several passengers. He gets in a helicopter and they fly him up, and he hangs basically.
That's crazy. He's just dangling from a helicopter. He's so badass. Steve McQueen is the most badass firefighter of all time.
So you got these helicopter guys like taking in Steve McQueen to go save these people in the elevator, while the other firefighters are like booing people from the higher building to the lower building in like a one-man chair, basically. So they get to do it one at a time. They got to pull the thing down and then pull it back and then pull it down. It's like, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of people up there. There's still a couple hundred people up there, and you're looking at like a 10-minute trip, basically.
Yeah, they say they need a bit over 3 hours to get everybody.
Yeah, the daughter goes on and says goodbye to the father and all that stuff. McQueen basically attaches to the elevator at this point, and yeah, I was just like, okay, how is he? I saw him come in with the blowtorch. I was like, what's he gonna do with that? And he like cuts it free. I was like, oh, I thought he was gonna solder it onto it for some reason. I'm like, I don't think it's gonna hold. But yeah, no, he had like a whole latch system. They were prepared.
It was just like, how can this helicopter handle this weight? That seems like a crazy amount of weight.
That's what I was thinking too. That's a question for a resident, airplane expert, Michael Henry, that we might have to ask him sometime. He would be able to know if it had the ability to hold something like that. But yeah, he basically saves everybody, brings them down to the ground, and he goes to catch a break, and that's when they're like, "You're not done yet." And he gets the information from this guy who I kind of recognize, but I couldn't put my finger on, and I think he was in MASH, like the old show MASH. Yeah. basically the fire's reached a critical point, and O'Halloran is given the grim truth. There's a risky plan to explode the 1,000,000-gallon water tanks on top of the building to extinguish the flames. O'Halloran
Guess who
and
gets to do it?
Roberts, yeah, Steve McQueen and Paul Newman. They're basically set to
angled from a helicopter, but we're not done with you yet.
Well, that's the thing. They actually have to fly O'Halloran up in a helicopter in a heat suit and drop him on the roof so he can get access to the water tanks. While that's happening, old Cunty McGee decides he's had enough waiting and he begins a chaos fight.
Well, he doesn't like his number because he's like 68.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He's a ways back. No,
he wants off this, but by doing that, he basically kills 2 men because they're onto the buoy.
Yeah, he puts
a fighting struggle.
First, he puts together a gang of like 4 other guys that also have shitty numbers. He's like, "Hey, we all got shitty numbers. Let's work together."
Yeah, it's like, what is your reasoning? You
then they turn on each other like instantly, which is awesome because they are those kind of shady, weak fuckers, and they would turn on each other. So it's hilarious.
And they all get their comeuppance. They all fall to their freaking death because
do.
They're idiots.
They do.
Yeah, we get badass McQueen. He makes it to the roof, and him and Roberts set explosives on the tanks on the 138th floor. And the remaining guests prepare for the ensuing flood. They're all told to tie themselves down as tight as they possibly can. But as they're doing that, the fire engulfs the promenade room. Simmons attempts to take control of the breach
too, though. Like,
well,
they're waiting for the water to come, and they're all just tied down. And there's so many good things in this movie.
Simmons, as we said, he falls to his death because he was killed in an explosion. The breacher's buoys comes undone. Damn, I kind of wrote things. I should have done a bit of editing here. Anyway, these guys basically they set off their explosions. I like this scene here where these two are going down the stairs, and McQueen's like, "Hang on," gives them some oxygen, puts on the heat, moves the door, he runs past it, like they get through that like little obstacle. Like, I like that scene. They set the timers to 5, and they eventually explode. Everyone's like tied down, and you're just waiting for this thing to go off, and then the scene happens, and it's just like cool. It's just cool.
It's like a delay. You hear the explosion, and it was just like
shock.
And like nothing's happening. It's just like there's like no water. There's like nothing.
But there's also like fire explosions, and like people who are tied to certain things have to like untie themselves to get away from the fire explosion, which leaves them open for like when the waterfall eventually comes down. So yeah,
a lot of people are killed in this waterfall.
A lot of people. Yeah, it successfully douses the flames, but not without significant casualties. Some guests, including the mayor, do not survive.
Paul Newman even says, "Look, if we do this, some of us will make it."
Yeah,
like not all of us.
Get this cool shot of Fred Astaire like pinned down. I like the scene, but there was that Carlos guy. He was like the bartender who wanted to save like the 79 wine LeBlanc. He's like, but it's like the 29 or something, and the Marlboro or whatever, the Picard.
He had a whole case of it. He was just giving it to him from William Holden. Like, gave him the big
and he ties himself like under the bar or whatever, and then all of a sudden like everything happens, and then the statue just swings down and crushes his chest, and he dies needlessly. And I felt bad. I'm like, that didn't need to happen.
And before that, he ties himself to the box of all the wine. And Fred Astaire comes up to him. I think it's Fred Astaire. He's just like, "You're really gonna tie yourself to all that glass?"
Yeah, something like.
And he's just like, "Oh, you're right." He like unties himself from the.
Well, no, he doesn't. He doesn't.
No, he doesn't. Does he?
You tie yourself to that glass. He pulls it away from him, and he's like, "But sir, that's the 29." Like it was his only like mindset. He was such a bartender. Yeah. So. Where was I when I read right? So yeah, on the ground, everybody survives. They head back to the ground. Claiborne is heartbroken to learn that Lizalette has died, and Jernigan gives him her pet cat Elkie, whom he holds, tearing up in both grief and in shame at himself. Patty is also grief-stricken by the death of Simmons.
Thank you.
She sees his body. She like finds his body, and Holden's like, "I didn't want you to see that." And then reunited with Susan. this is basically my favorite part, which is the end for the most part, but not all of it. But this is my favorite line in the whole film.
It's the best line in the movie, sure.
Maybe they just ought to leave it the way it is.
It was probably my favorite scene too.
Kind of shrined all the bullshit in the world.
Wrong button. So yeah, reunite with Susan. Doug feels the tower should be left shut down as a shrine to all the bullshit in the world. O'Halloran departs physically and emotionally drained, knowing that they were fortunate enough that casualty toll was less than 200.
All the bullshit in the world, he means rich people.
Yeah, and he's like, one of these days, you architects are gonna, talk to us firefighters and talk about how to actually build one of these buildings because they're going to be death traps. And he's right. Yeah, Towering Inferno showcases devastating consequences of compromising safety and the heroic efforts of those who risk their lives to save others in a harrowing disaster that changed the way high-rise buildings were designed.
In the just like the sick nature of the fact that these firefighters and all these people are dying based on the selfish decisions of like one or two people,
I saved you millions and you weren't complaining to me then. It's like,
yeah, it's like, yeah, but now you're killing everybody. Like, now everybody's dying and it's your fault. But yeah,
such a common theme around the world.
Which performance would you hold up?
Steve McQueen. I mean, even Paul Newman was pretty good too, but like Steve McQueen.
He was. And so was William Holden.
Yeah.
But
William Holden was all right. William Holden was despicable enough that I didn't like his character. It's just like, exactly. You got yourself into this situation. You're going to be
but by the end, he sort of shows himself to be less despicable than a lot of the other people at his party, where he's just trying to get everyone to work together and like it's all his fault. But once he realizes that, he's like just trying to do what the firemen are telling him, and everyone else is just like, screw that, So, but yeah, Steve McQueen. If it's your introduction to Steve McQueen, which may be mine as well, he looks familiar enough. Anyway, but it might just be clips because he's so famous and he's in a lot of things.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's a great introduction to Steve McQueen. I feel like he maybe wasn't going.
Such a legendary, wild movie. Like, I wish I'd seen it sooner, but I'm glad I watched it now. It's wow. It was just, I wasn't expecting it to be that good. I was expecting it to be entertaining. I was expecting it to be a 70s film. I wasn't expecting it to be that good. I was like, it's going to be a bit dated. It's going to be a firefighters movie, or it's going to be, Fire Blaze. Like, I didn't know what to really expect. I did not.
Me neither.
The scenes
I didn't
saw
know how they were
going to
make a good movie out of this.
Jaw dropped. How they're going to,
it's such like basic concept. How are you going to make a great movie of this? But they did. And I was wrong. He's not in Cool Hand. Paul Newman is. Steve McQueen, man. Setting and aesthetic, it looks amazing. It looks real and gritty, and it pulls you right in because you feel like you're there.
Yeah,
yep,
yeah. There's only a few scenes, and it's mostly like the super wide establishing shots of the city, or if there's like mostly like the stairwell scenes, like just those obvious like you can't do this in reality, so you have to use a image behind blue screen or whatever, right? Like you gotta frame it out. So aside from those small pieces where you can sort of see the seams of filmmaking, the rest of the film is just like pulls you in, doesn't let you go, because the sets were all built and all destroyed. I think
that tower looks like it's on fire. Looks like a tower on fire.
Well, it's it was mostly miniature towers, but they were actually on fire. I think it was like something like 20 sets built, and by the end of it, only 8 of them were left standing.
This immersive quality of like the setting and the aesthetic is what On the Beach needed. Like you needed to feel like you were there waiting for the end, on the beach, and it never really achieved that.
Yeah, it was just on the shore.
It's on the shore. Yeah. Well, you get some morsels for us.
So, movie morsels for the Towering Inferno, 1974. 1,000 real firefighters were hired throughout the entire production, and 60 stunt people performed more than 200 stunts in this film. This film
some
marked
serious
the first.
Whoever Paul Newman was shimmying down that thing, that dude is an acrobat.
That was Paul Newman.
No, it wasn't. What?
That's one of my movie morsels. Yeah. This film marked the first joint production by two major studios, Warner Brothers and the 20th Century Fox. Steve McQueen did most of his stunts for the film, including having 7,000 gallons of water dumped on him in the climactic final attempt to put out the fire. Sean Connery, Rod Taylor, and Charlton Heston were considered for the role of Chief O'Halloran. This would have been a very weird movie.
Heston was in a lot of those movies for sure.
Yeah,
but no,
this is a casting choice that I wish they had gone with. Carl Weathers auditioned for the role of Jernigan. We could have had Lando Calrissian. He was the O.J. Simpson's character, the security guard.
Carl Weathers didn't play Lando Calrissian. That's Billy D. Williams.
Oh, wait.
Carl Weathers played Apollo Creed.
Right. That's right. Right, because look, sorry, I was thinking.
Carl Weathers was in Predator. He's the other hand in the big handshake.
Yeah, that's right, and he's also in The Mandalorian, so that's where my Star Wars got crossed over. But yeah, anyways, I would have preferred Carl Weathers as the security officer over O.J. Simpson, just under principle alone.
Me too.
Okay, so yeah, according to Joe Musso, he had been the staff member to suggest killing off Carlos in the movie. Carlos was originally written in the script to survive, but Musso pointed out that killing off a more major character would create the impression that Irwin Allen had fallen into a trope of killing off the hero in all of his movies. Carlos was chosen because he was a lesser supporting character who happened to be the most sympathetic character in the film next to Lizette, who herself was already written to die in a tragic elevator fall scene, which still shocked me. The largest set constructed for the movie was the promenade deck, as all promenade decks are. The site of the party on the 135th floor, it covered a total area of 11,000 square feet and was 25 feet high and enclosed by a 340-foot cloth painted to resemble the San Francisco skyline. So it was like a painted background. The set was around 10 feet off the ground to allow the water in the climax to be drained off, and also gave a sense of height to the shots of people being forced throughout the windows. And the set cost $300,000 in the 70s. So,
still though, they achieved a lot with that.
They got a lot out of that, yeah. After seeing this film, novelist Roderick Thrope had a dream that Roderick Thrope had a dream that same night about a man being chased through a skyscraper by gun-wielding assailants. This was the inspiration for his 1979 book, Nothing Lasts Forever, which eventually was made into the film Die Hard in 1988. Against Irwin's strenuous objections, Steve McQueen insisted on doing the stunt where he leaps off a helicopter onto the top of a burning building. Paul Newman did most of his own stunts, including climbing up and down the bent stairwell railing.
Well, he had to if they were having a pissing contest the entire. As soon as one of them does a stunt, the other guy has to do a stunt.
Yeah, like it makes sense now. During filming, an actual fire broke out on one of the sets, and Steve McQueen found himself briefly helping real firefighters put it out. One of the firefighters not recognizing
At least they had
McQueen,
1,000 firefighters there to deal with the problem.
Yeah, one of the firefighters, not recognizing McQueen, said to the actor, "My wife is not going to believe this." To which McQueen replied, "Neither's mine." The movie premiered on December 16th, 1974. It won 3 Academy Awards: Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Song with "We May Never Love Like This Again." It was also nominated for Best Picture Supporting Actor in Fred Astaire. Okay, so he
Best
didn't
Picture.
win.
Jeez.
Yeah, he was nominated for Best Pictures. Like Fred Astaire was nominated for Best Picture for Supporting Actor in this film, and not the other one, which I thought he did a far
He didn't
better
even do a
acting
lot
job
in this one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He didn't do that much in this film, but he got like the nomination. Like if he was like he did a better acting in the other film. It's wild. Um, Art direction and music by John Williams, and sound, it made over 100 million on its domestic run alone. And the last 2 morsels here. Desperate to capture truly surprised reaction from the cast, Irwin Allen actually fired a handgun into the ceiling without warning the actors, who were understandably surprised. The trick worked, and he got his shot. And the final movie morsel, which I love, and is a little nod to our sister podcast. The matte painting of the San Francisco skyline was later reused in the background of Kirk's apartment in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan in 1982 and Star Trek III: The Search for Spock in 1984. Cinematography by Fred J. Konekamp and Joseph Burrock. Edited by Carl Kress and Harold F. Kress. Music by John Williams. Released on December 16th, 1974, with a runtime of 165 minutes, a budget of $14 million, with a box office of $203.3 million. It was a box office success for The Towering Inferno.
It lost to Godfather Part 2 for Best Picture that year. I'm more of a Part 1 man, but Godfather Part 2 is a great movie. But you know what? I like this movie better than Godfather Part 2.
Would you believe I've never watched the Godfather films?
Andre said the same thing to me. And he's a big film buff. He's seen everything, but he has never seen The Godfather. And to me, it's the best movie ever made. Maybe we'll have to add it to the gangster one, because if you haven't seen it, you have to watch The Godfather. You make me watch anime, you're watching The Godfather for 3 hours.
But maybe we should get Andre in on that episode so he can watch it too. 2 birds with 1 stone.
We already have Eamon in on that one, I think. But we'll
Do
see. How his internet's doing.
Maybe we'll have to bump him for somebody with a little more reliable internet connection.
Oh, we can't do that. All right. Well, rewatchability, yes. I think this is the kind of movie I want to show other people. I'm like, you got to watch this. I'll watch it with you. Like, let's do it.
Yeah, I would put this movie on during like a party or something, like just as
not
like
a party movie.
Background image.
House Party and The Towering Inferno, 2 best party movies of all time.
Like it could be. I don't know. It's just a great film. I would absolutely rewatch this. Like yeah, wow. I was just shocked with how good this film was. Like Adam Woodward picked this film, and it was a great pick.
No, he didn't. I did. He just
did
didn't change any of my picks. Yeah, I picked both of these.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
he's like, no, I like your picks. I said, all right.
All right, cool. That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, then, good pick, sir. Great pick. Made up for on
the beach. Yeah. I had to take credit for it because or else I was just the lowly on the beach guy this episode, and that's not who I was here. Okay. Does it hold up? Yes, it does. Go watch The Towering Inferno. Just do it. It's a good 3 hours to commit your life to.
It's not even 3 hours. It's like
it's like 3 hours and 14 minutes. I think it's over 3 hours, isn't it?
No,
it's
like
pretty long.
I feel like it was the shortest of the films that we watched. Let me just take a look.
Greenland was the shortest.
No, Greenland was the shortest. Yeah, this was...
Yeah, for sure it was.
2 hours and 44 minutes long.
Yeah, basically 3 hours. Yeah, it holds up. Go watch it.
Yeah, absolutely hold up. Watch that film.
It's pretty much a must watch.
Probably one of my top 10 favorite films, I think.
Wow. It is great. I'm not going to argue with that. I don't know if I'm going to rank it that high for me, but you know what? We're going to do a season end episode roundup, and we'll see how we feel about these movies uh, in the grander context. All right. Well, let's move over to Theater 3, why don't we? Where we have Greenland. Yeah, but would it surprise you to hear that Greenland is in fact covered in ice?
Yes. Yes.
In Iceland, covered in green.
Quite the classic trick that was played by the Vikings.
Indeed, indeed. Well, you know, but we're watching Greenland from 2020, starring Gerard Butler, the great, beautiful, and wonderful Morena Baccarin, Roger Dale Floyd, which I assume plays the son, and the great Scott Glenn. I like Scott Glenn and everything pretty much, and directed by Rick Roman Woff. Yeah, Scott Glenn was really good in Netflix's Daredevil as Stick.
Yes, he was great. It was cool seeing Stick in this. Yeah, this is my pick for the episode, obviously.
Good job, Murphy. I was surprised. I was not expecting much from this. But
yeah, because like I could have gone with like Dante's Peak or Armageddon or something like that, but I was like, nah, these are classic. I wanted to find something a little more, modern.
Yes, I will say is my favorite asteroid movie. It's better than Deep Impact, which was probably my favorite one, but this is better.
I was thinking the same thing.
Asteroid movie.
Yes, incredible.
There's a lot of bad ones. Armageddon's not good. Yeah.
No, and you know what? I
wanted good.
Something. I wanted something like
cream.
fresh. I wanted to give something fresh, something I definitely haven't seen, and I was like, this one sounds like it could be a good time. And I kind of saw like the trailer a bit, and I was like, all right, yeah, this could be all right. But even the trailer doesn't really highlight how good it is. This trailer right here.
Look at like that asteroid hit Tampa.
Oh, dude. Tampa got annihilated.
I don't see Clark.
Maybe he's still sleeping.
Dad.
Some of Clark's larger fragments are now expected to enter our atmosphere.
That's right, and now these are just... What are they saying?
More of the same.
That's just gonna make a heck of a show.
Whoa. Where are they going?
Everyone's just so casual about this.
I don't know.
So, yeah, because there's like, what do you... It's just going to be like another rainstorm or something. That's what everyone thinks, right?
Yeah.
Wait, where's the explosion?
Yeah, that's when the movie's like, okay, things are picking up. It took like 20 minutes to film. It was like, all right, here we go.
We now are
start to hit the gas.
That the fragment has hit Central Florida.
Oh my God.
That was terrifying.
Are some more pieces gonna hit?
Yeah.
Come on, let's go.
But the sky's on
There's some
fire.
terrifying stuff.
2 days. They got it all wrong. There's a ton of fragments. Planet killers.
This
part's hard. There's so many things that were hard to watch, dude. There was mostly just human dynamics that are really hard to watch.
They've been tracking the military flights to
this
bunkers
movie
in
had
Greenland.
me on the edge of my seat the whole time, and it didn't let me go. It's
Yeah.
weirdly tropish, if that's to say, but like,
So
this
it's
seems
probably just like an Amazon movie made for Amazon Prime and stuff. What a great job they did.
Well, it's supposed to be released in
better than
theaters,
a lot
but
of-
it was
Oh, really?
pushed because of COVID.
Clark's largest fragment will hit in less than 24 hours.
I wouldn't have gone and seen this in theater, but I should have. It had it going.
I know you will, son.
Scott Glenn was great in this.
If you are hearing this broadcast, seek shelter immediately.
What is it? What's going on?
This is
If you are hearing
definitely the best I've ever seen Gerard Butler in anything, and the best movie I've ever seen him in.
Hang on, Nathan.
seek shelter immediately.
Yeah, there wasn't a moment I'm watching his character where I was like, he's phoning it in. Like, I fully believed he was this John Allen Garrity character. Like, I didn't look at him as like Gerard Butler at any point.
And as Murphy and I were gushing about earlier, I mentioned to Murphy, like, for me, a top 3 actress for me is Morena Baccarin. I love her and everything. Her emotions are always so believable. You just like, she can tear your heart out with the way she acts with her emotion, and she does it in this. I just love Marina Baccarin. I was glad I wasn't disappointed. She's amazing in this. She should be nominated for a freaking award for her performance in this. She's amazing in this.
Yeah, 100%. She's the heart of this film. If it wasn't for her being in this film, you emotionally probably would have been checked out. Like any other
it would have been
actress,
Scott Glenn would have been the emotional character beyond her in this.
yeah, and he was in it for like not a long time. So like she carried this movie. In my opinion, she was a phenomenal.
Oh yeah, she's the star of this movie. She gets second billing to Gerard Butler, but she shouldn't have.
Yeah, she's the lead in my opinion. But yeah, so let's get into this breakdown a bit. So we start with structural engineer John Allen Garrity, played by Gerard Butler. He lives in Atlanta, Georgia. He's originally from Scotland, and with his estranged wife Allison and their son Nathan. Allison played by Marina Baccarin and Nathan played by Roger Dale Floyd, who has diabetes and relies on an insulin pump. And it was like one of those like tropes. I'm like, oh god, the kid's sick, but like
it played into it in a good way.
In a way that was like, okay, I'm not
for the story
like drawn away from it. Like it makes it more intense, really. So yeah, the family's putting on a brave
there's no
front
movie
for Nathan
without that.
Yeah, it's true. There really is no movie.
The movie for these characters is over halfway through, if not for that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, they're kind of putting on a brave face. They're trying to get through their strained relationship. And the news is abuzz with imminent passing of an interstellar comet named Clark.
Then like, okay, it's not one. It's actually more like a field of them.
Yeah, it's a field of broken comics that we should get to watch. Yeah, it's like nobody be concerned about this scatter shot.
Yeah, everybody just watch.
Yeah, all these planes flying away.
You know something's wrong though. You look up and you just see the military all going in the same direction. Your next thought's not gonna be everything's fine.
Yeah, it's like what direction are they going? And I should probably follow them, right? Like
or not.
So yeah,
go
John.
in the opposite direction.
So yeah, the Garys decide to host a party for their friends and neighbors to witness this extraordinary event on the news. While John is out shopping for groceries, he receives an alarming presidential alert on his phone, and the message informs him that he, along with his wife Allison and Nathan, have been selected for emergency sheltering.
So sloppy. They should do it on the phones. That made sense. But then they start flashing it on their big screen TV. Yeah. What if they have people over? Like that, I mean, of course, it's like an emergency situation. They want to make sure they absolutely get your attention, but like the problems that they maybe should have anticipated that could cause.
Yeah, because there's not just like there's got to be like it even gets out at one point throughout the film that like they're hot. People are getting secret messages. So yeah, as he's heading back, he notices a military van speeding through the streets and hinting at the gravity of the situation. But yeah. They, like you said, there's people at their house having a party.
Of the situation.
You like that? So yeah, during the party, they're all watching the fragments enter their atmosphere. News breaks that a fragment of the comet Clark has struck the ocean, but suddenly the ground trembles on a massive shockwave rocks the city, as we saw in the trailer, and the live broadcast shows the devastating.
I don't know if this is a morsel of yours, but I assume they're naming this after Arthur C. Clarke.
Yes, sir. That was a movie morsel of mine. This was named after
just a
Arthur
guess.
C. Clarke.
You hear sci-fi and Clarke, I put the two together. Yeah.
And you know something else? The little neighbor girl Ellie, that was also a nod to LE, the Extreme Level Extinction event. Yeah, the live broadcast shows the devastating impact of the fragment, which is just like a really cool scene. They do it really well, and it's just like, that's terrifying to watch.
Terrifying because it just happens so fast. It just obliterates terrifying.
Strikes Florida,
and like it's so close. It's like Tampa. It almost hit the water. But that's the thing. They could never be able to predict it with such accuracy. Like if they say it's going to hit kilometer off the coast, kilometer's not much when you're talking about something falling from space. So you could be off by a kilometer in your calculations based on anything that could happen. Something could explode within the consistency of that comet that sends it. Like, I would never be super. It's cool with all the predictions that everyone is in this movie. It was just like, oh, it's fine. They're saying on the Weather Network it's fine, so it must be fine. I'm like, I don't know, man. Comets hitting the Earth. I don't know, man.
Just,
I might be
sit there
I
and
might be
watch
in a
it.
bomb shelter.
If you can get one.
And Jaemeel's here.
While they're hold up, yeah.
Join us. Spare change, Jaemeel. You get some spare change.
So yeah, basically the fragment hits Florida instead of this expected ocean landing, and then a presidential alert repeats the evacuation instructions, directing the Garrities to report to Robinson Air Force Base for evacuation flights, which puts their neighbors into a fucking chaos. Like, what's this? Why are you guys getting the fucking Willy Wonka ticket to safety?
Mm-hmm.
What's happening here? And yeah, they proceed to try and leave.
This part was hard to watch. Oh man.
Yeah,
this tore my heart
this
out.
whole scene, like his neighbors,
man.
like with no time to spare, the Garrities hastily pack their belongings into a bag. Their neighbor Ed, Gary Weeks, warns John about the magnitude of the comet's impact, leading him to leave behind Deborah's daughter Ellie, played by Madison Johnson. Spider pleased to join them. It's like, and he's right though. He's like, what am I gonna do? Bring her there for them to turn around?
They're just gonna turn her away.
Her? Yeah, right. Which they were clearly doing.
Man, my heart was breaking. I was just like imagining my own little daughter, and I was just like, ah. It's like, I think I might have been crying at that point. It was a couple times. The best scene later is even more heart wrenching. But
yes. So yeah, the Garrities
at that point,
closer
I was like,
to
oh,
base.
this movie has guts. I was like, before it could have been anything. It's just like, yeah, this movie could go either way. It could go any way at this point. But as soon as that scene hits, you're just like, oh, there's some weight.
You get this little foreshadow scene of Nathan pulling out his blanket from their emergency bag, and it knocks out the insulin, and you're just like, oh, that's not good. You're not going to see that. But yeah, the Garrities get close to the base, but are held back by a long line of traffic, so they must abandon their car. Unfortunately, Nathan had grabbed his blanket and unknowingly dropped that medication on the floor. As the huge crowd is gathered demanding access onto the planes, after the Garrities gain entrance into the base with the wristbands, they realize that they left the medicine in the car when they can't find it in the bag. John goes out to grab it, but when Allison mentions Nathan's condition to a soldier, the two are led to meet Major Byrne, played by Maren Dugney, who informs them that Nathan's medical condition disqualifies him from boarding, and this was basically my favorite.
Did I say diabetes? He's a superstar athlete.
You would have no idea that he had a pump.
I'm afraid there's nothing I can do about that, man.
Was this your favorite scene?
You can pretend that you didn't see it.
I chose this one.
Then ignore it.
One. She's so good.
What if this was your family?
My family wasn't selected, ma'am. 99% of armed forces weren't. We are all volunteers here just doing our jobs.
I'm sorry. I am. But please.
Yeah, I chose that as my favorite.
Not all about you.
Because it highlights. Yeah, it's not all about her. It highlights the fact that, hey, all these people that are doing their best to save your life right now, they're giving up their fucking lives to do that because they view it as their job, their duty, and they're like they got to give that up. So that I want to highlight that because that's like the reality of a lot of service people, sadly, which is wild to me, and they should be commended for stuff like that.
Like that's the difference between their two characters. Like Gerard Butler, it seems to be like he was more prepared for all of this. He was like a guy's probably a little more rough around the edges, hardcore kind of guy. And he was a cheater. Like that was their whole relationship dynamic. He's a cheater. And I mean, though they were on a break in Friends talk. But,
so yeah,
but
Believe
her
John is already
she's like overwhelmed by this whole thing. Like in that, like she keeps messing up by like mentioning the diabetes in the first place, messing up in front of that lady there, messing up with the ride they get later. Like she makes a lot of bad calls, whereas he's not doing that so much.
Well, he's trying to keep it together, and she's like obviously in the panic state of like what's gonna happen here. But yeah, believing John has already boarded a plane, Allison desperately tries to get in touch with him, but communication proves futile amidst the chaos. John, on the other hand, tries to get on a plane, unaware that Allison and Nathan are still stuck outside the base. Another passenger spots Nathan's medication, alerts John about the rule concerning medical conditions. He had a brother that was kicked off because of his whatever medical problem, illness. At this point, John sees that the doors are closing, so he asks to be left off the plane, and that's when we get to this freaking wild scene where it's almost like a zombie-like invasion as a crowd just storms the gate, breaks, and violence erupts, and gunfire happens, and like this guy who's filling the gas, like filling the plane with gas, gets shot, and gas starts pouring out, and he's like, "Get off the plane, it's gonna blow!" Yeah, society,
that's the moment, like,
literally just
collapses. Yeah,
and everything's running, and all of a sudden, like gunfire, and it just blows up, and everything catches on fire. She's like trying to get a hold of him.
Yeah, the plane he was just on blows up.
He literally barely makes it out there in time, and he runs back to the car.
Yeah.
We noticed that Allison and Nathan had found the car a little earlier, but it was broken into, and she leaves a note for John telling him to meet them at her father's house in Lexington, Kentucky. John finds the note and follows. Meanwhile, Allison and Nathan make their way to a looted store to get medication. And I was like, oh, this isn't going to go well. This scene was like had me on the edge of my seat. I was like, this is a badness about to happen. Alice and Nathan make their way to the looted store to get medication that Nathan needs because he's like on 300 insulin or something like that. And the situation becomes real dire because gunmen storm the place and are like shooting people and telling them
take all the drugs.
Their motives, yeah, their motives are obviously like, getting there to get high, but it's wild. She eventually like runs into this dude, pleads for her son's life, and he lets them go. They manage to escape with the help of Judy, played by Hope Davis, and Ralph, played by David Denman. This creepy little this couple, like they gave you creepy vibes. They're like, oh, there might be helpful, but it got like creepy vibes super fast. And then John proceeds through foot on the city where he comes across more looters and like a church, and then eventually he finds a rooftop where he comes across like people partying on top of the roof, which I was like, I get that. And they're like, fuck you, Clark. And I was like, that's.
Do you mean they're looters because they're looting the place, or because they're on Quaaludes? Are they looters or looters?
Loot with a T.
Okay, maybe both.
Yeah,
maybe they're looters that are looting.
So he's on the roof with people watching Clark, fragments passing through, and he manages to get a bit of reception to call Allison. They briefly talk, but it drops, and they're just trying to communicate. Allison chats with Ralph and Judy, dropping that their family was selected but denied entrance. Ralph then appears to come up with a plan and pulls over to try and get Allison out. She fights him, but is ultimately overpowered, and his wristband's taken. Meanwhile, while that's happening, John's also encountered a truck full of people heading towards Canada. And among the passengers, he meets a young man named Colin. Colin reveals that the planes in Canada are supposedly heading to the classified bunkers in Greenland, adding a layer of mystery to the evacuation efforts. However, tensions arise when another passenger named Lucas learns that John, who is Scottish, got selected for evacuation, and Lucas expresses racism, believing only American-born citizens should have been chosen. The confrontation ensues basically on both fronts for Allison, with Ralph pulling over and pulling her out of the van and taking Nathan, swearing that he's a better family and they're going to take care of the son as they head to the airport, and she's left stranded.
She should have stabbed that dude in the neck.
Yeah, like she should have been way more violent. In the neck. Yeah, the fact that these people didn't have self-defense on them was like a huge no-no.
Well, it leads to what the best scene is later. This whole.
So while that's happening, John's in the truck with these guys, and it starts getting confrontation, and they decide, to start wrestling for the wristband, and it gets into a fight that the truck ultimately gets careened out of control and crashes.
It's a crazy fight.
It's a crazy fight because these two are like all stunned.
I feel like they didn't waste any scene. They didn't skip over anything. They made every scene in this movie count, and I find that's not the case too much anymore. There's just so many filler in every modern movie. This didn't have that.
Yeah, even with the crash, it was like blackout, and then he wakes up on the grass, and then he sees the hammer, and he struggles for the hammer, and he's like fighting between these guys, getting like he scares off one, but the other guy's too much, and he ultimately like takes a backhand swing and plops the hammer into his skull, killing him. That's his first murder. And then it reveals that Colin had died from the injuries and stuff like that, and he's just sort of John's left to grapple the repercussions of the murder he just committed, highlighting the dangers and challenges he's facing on his quest to reunite with his family amidst the chaos that's caused by the Comet Clark. Allison runs out of is basically saved by this like Hispanic family that are heading towards the airport that Judy and Ralph are. When they get caught up at this point, Ralph's telling Nathan, you're just play along, don't tell anybody, or bad shit'll happen. That typical abuser type behavior.
Boy, he's a good boy though. He doesn't listen to that friggin' asshole at all.
Yeah, no, like he eventually like lets this guard know that like these people kidnapped him, and it turns into a whole thing.
He's not my family. I don't know these people.
Yep. That's exactly what the kids should be doing. Allison runs out of the van once they're stopped by traffic heading to the airport. Further up, Ralph and Judy have reached the base, but they're caught by the MPs. Allison eventually gets up and she starts like frantically looking for her son. Nathan he's brought to the FEMA medical camp, and Allison, makes her way there, and the soldiers like helping her go through the few tents before she's ultimately reunited with Nathan, which brings us to your favorite scene.
Never let that happen again. I'm so sorry.
He's a remarkable
Of course, not entirely her fault, but she should be sorry.
You're Allison.
Yeah.
He's type 1 diabetic. I've got
Like this is the scene I was crying, and I was just like, yes, you should be sorry. I was mad at her at the same time, but I'm like, I'm glad she got her kid back and everything was fine. But yeah, powerful.
Bro, I was just like, oh man,
I'm like, you let that guy keep his eyes while he was trying to kidnap your kid.
Where does your father
like, she was within eye gouging range. Like,
okay, maybe I can.
You fight to the tooth to death for that,
And I also put together a week's supply of.
In the end, it worked out.
And insulin and test strips. So I wish I could give you more, but it's all we have.
Oh my god, yeah.
Dude, like that hug brought me to tears. Like, cause you feel what they've been going through up into that moment, right? You feel what they went through to everything in that. Like, oh my god, so good. Morena's so good in that scene, and like
she said
the lady who plays a nurse.
My favorite thing is she said the exact two sentences. The first two sentences she said to her kid were the first two sentences it should have been, other than maybe "I love you," which maybe she said that first. I can't remember, but then she says, "I'm sorry, and I'll never let that happen again." And those are the exact two things. Like, there's no other things you can even think of to say other than those two things. Those are the first things that child should hear, and she did that. So that's good, but man,
it's
gut-wrenching stuff.
Powerful scene. The following morning, John walks into an empty neighborhood and breaks into a house for food and water.
Still leaves a little note though. He's just like, "Sorry, I'm stealing your shit. I'll bring it back if we're all alive." Really?
Yeah, he watches the news for more devastating impacts around the world, as well as the news of the worst of Clark to hit Europe the next day, estimating the death of 70%
it makes
of
no sense
animal life.
That like all that's still working though. Really, like
the news and power and stuff like that. Yeah, there's a bit of likelihood. Like I can see that they would want to try and keep like news programs running and getting news out there.
Yeah.
So like this possibility, with the powers on.
Tampa's out of power.
Yeah, Tampa's out of power. Tampa's out of Tampa. So yeah, basically 70% of plant and animal life, plus more than 75 million deaths will occur because of this comment. So he steals a car and makes his way to the home of Allison's father, Dale, who's played by Scott Glenn. And yeah, if he survives, he'll bring back the car. So we see Stick playing poker with the boys, and he's gonna bust out the savings to get himself out of that one. He's really losing. But yeah, John finally arrives at Allison's father's house, where they confront their past issues. After some time, Allison calls for pickup with Nathan returning home, and the family watches the news, acknowledging the likelihood of perishing soon. But then John recalls Colin's info about planes going to Greenland and decides to attempt reaching him. I did like the one scene where the grandfather's like, "Hey, kiddo, you want some pancakes?" He's like, "Yeah," and he's like, "With tons of syrup," and he's like, "Yeah," and the parents are like, "No," and he's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot." The whole diabetes thing.
Diabetic kid. Yeah.
Tons of syrup. Yeah. Tons of syrup. Yeah. No.
No.
So yeah, John realizes that there's still a chance, so they want to make the attempt to reach them. They invite Dale to join, but he opts to stay home because his wife died in this house, and he's gonna die in this house, and he accepts his fate. And respectable.
He's an old man anyway. It's just like
he
just doesn't want to be on the run for his last days. I get it.
Yeah. While that's happening, a nearby comet hits, and it highlights that these guys need to get to moving. So yeah, the Garrity's leave in Dale's truck and encounter a radio report of basically down the road of molten debris heading their way, like an emergency. Like if you're hearing this, find shelter. Molten debris is heading your way. Fireballs start raining down, causing panic and destruction. And John tries to drive Allison and the kids to safety beneath an underpass. But before he does that, he rescues a man who had crashed. So he's saving lives. Something like a little retribution for the one he took, balance the scales, if you will. Eventually, they continue their journey towards the runway, determined to make it on the last evacuating plane. They see that the plane is about to leave, so John parks the truck in the path of the departing plane. John initially intends for only Allison and Nathan to board, but she convinces
he's a quick thinker,
played by Holt McCanley. Yeah, it's a great plane. Like you're in front of the planes, not gonna go off. But yeah, she convinces the pilot played by Holt McCanley to take them all. He's basically going, I'm gonna drive there at this point.
Like, of course, you're already overloaded. Like, you're already gonna stick as many people as you absolutely can on that plane. So
yeah,
like
three more,
three more was actually probably just so ridiculously crazy. They were probably way over capacity already.
Yes. So we get this little brief scene where John has like a family flashback, and you think, oh no, are they gonna die on this plane? But not quite. They wake up, they're over Greenland, but a comet hits offshore, causing a bit of a shockwave, knocking out the plane's engines. And then we get this dope scene of this guy flying this twin in a Canadian, I forget the plane, but it's a twin-engine Canadian plane. Not a Cessna. It was my buddy Mike Henry. I told him about this film, and he was like, his first response when I told him about this film. This is from a friend of the show, Michael Henry. I just did a shallow dive into it on IMDb, and it features a Canadian-built twin otter plane. Apparently so. I guess I have to watch it now. So that's his response when I told him.
There's an otter plane in it? Oh, wow.
This twin otter plane's in it. But yeah, no, I was like, dude, you have to, because this scene, I thought of you immediately. This scene was
about
so
the helicopters.
Right?
Towering Inferno.
I did too. I told him about the helicopter scene in that, and he needs to watch it. He's seen Towering Inferno. He thinks it's a great film. But yeah, the pilot fucking... I don't have the screenshots to do this justice, because realistically you need to watch this film to watch this pilot pull off this excellent crash landing. Like, he was such a badass and a hero, and he nailed it.
Canadian legend.
Like a leaf on the wind, he goes out.
Yep. Watch how he soars.
Style. Watch how he soars. John goes to check the pilots to see that they're dead, but he sees that also a plane is landing in a bunker about a mile away. So he lets the evacuees, know that they got to get going. This is our time. So they all start running towards the bunker. They wave down a military truck, which brings them to the thing. Yeah. So they all led underground as the last of Clark is about to hit very soon. Literally just in time. Nathan's like, where's the flashes? Where's the flashes? And they're like, oh, buddy, it's okay. And they embrace each other, waiting as the impact is felt.
Yeah, the flashes of your past before you die. That's what he's waiting for.
Yeah. And then, the impact's felt. Then you get these shots of like Sydney and like San Francisco and Paris and all these cities like burnt out rubbles and stuff. And they find out 9 months later that the atmosphere is cleared of radiation, allowing the survivors worldwide to make contact with Greenland. And the Garrities and others emerge from the bunkers, witnessing a changed world with ruined cities. However, hope prevails as they marvel at the sight of birds flying overhead. Determined to rebuild, the Garrities join the other survivors in their journey toward a new beginning. And we get this final shot.
It's a nice thing. You hear all the other cities chiming in too. They're like, Kathmandu's here.
So this is a fun little shot because you see where like the big global impacts are. If you notice, Nova Scotia, perfectly fine, slight charring, just on the edges, but perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's just cloud cover, no charring. No charring.
Yeah, good. Well, there's a bit of burning on the edges of it, but other than that, it's all good.
Okay.
Nothing crazy. But yeah, that's.
I mean, everyone lives on the edges of it, but.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Everyone lives by the coast. Gets everybody, pretty much. Someone in New Germany's fine.
I shit you not. What during like the ending of this movie, I was looking up like how much land was in like Nunavut in like northern Ontario and stuff like that. Maybe I should get some land and some like a desolate part of the country just in cases, and it's like $30,000.
Start working on our bunkers after this episode of our podcast, Murphy.
Yeah, for real, right? These movies have turned me into a prepper.
Yeah, me too. It shook us to our cores.
Yeah. It's like,
right.
well,
Well, which performance would you hold up?
Morena, 100%. Followed by Gerard Butler.
Flawless. Yeah, he's great. He's very good.
Yeah.
Everyone was good in this. This is very good acting in this movie.
Even the kid was good in it, man.
He was very good. Scott Glenn.
Yeah.
Like the creepy couple in the car. All the side characters were really good. Everybody.
Like even
the soldiers.
even like the brief like background neighbors and stuff like that. Everybody.
Yeah.
Like.
This is just a top-notch movie. I don't know
it's a top-notch movie with
maybe, but it is.
It's a top-notch movie, and it shouldn't be because it's a disaster movie, which hasn't been popular since like the early aughts.
And most aren't good. Most aren't good.
The most aren't good, which is again why they haven't been popular since the early aughts. And as a disaster movie, it's incredible. The setting and aesthetic is gorgeous. It's gridded. It makes you feel like you're with these people every step of the way. It makes you feel like you're in crowded situations. It makes you feel like you're waiting to like get to safety. Like every level of this film was so well thought out, well paced, well edited. I was really blown away with it. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it actually is, and it's like a top tier film that had me on the edge of my seat. It was gorgeous. Some shots were just like phenomenal. Look at like the planes all going in one direction. The comet, like the rooftop comet scene, like the rooftop party scene, and they're all looking at the comet, and the party goers are like, "Fuck you, Clark," and they're having a good time just listening to bass tunes. Like I could see that's a thing that would happen. You just look at this pretty sight, maybe take like a massive amount of LSD and see what happens. Who knows?
Yeah, it looks great. And it makes sense to me now that you tell me it was meant for theater, because I watched this with Tiffany. I turned around, I'm like, damn, this looks good for like some made for Amazon Prime movie. Like they must have spent some money on this, but expecting a theater release makes sense that you put that money into it.
Yeah, and it was just.
I don't think they would have put this money into it, and it would have looked so good if they were expecting to just be straight to streaming release. So awesome stuff. Yeah, and now I'm assuming you got some morsels for us.
So, movie morsels for Greenland 2020. I got a couple tasty snacks. Obviously, as we pointed out earlier, the comet is named Clark in tribute to the late Arthur C. Clarke, author of the 1993 novel Hammer of God, which describes the impact on Earth on a planet-killing asteroid. The novel predates the movie's Armageddon in 98 and Deep Impact also in 98, which deal with similar events. 98 was a big year for comets.
I remember it felt like it because those movies were coming out where we were like, is they trying to tell us something? Like, is there a comet coming and they're just preparing us slowly with like Aerosmith?
Yeah, right. Get Aerosmith in my head.
I could stay awake just to
okay, we're gonna strike.
right,
Anyway,
all right.
the location footage of Greenland at the end of the film is actually Iceland, which is hilarious. So they used Iceland for Greenland. Yeah,
because they wanted it to be green.
Yeah, which is I was waiting for the ice part, but didn't see that. This movie Morsel, when I read it, I was kind of like, really? And I'm not sure how I feel about this information, and I feel like you're going to have a similar reaction when I tell you this. A sequel, Greenland Migration, is in development. Gerard Butler and Morena Baccarin are confirmed to return, and original director Rick Romanois is also attached. They're going to make a sequel to this movie.
Yeah? All right, I'm in. Morena's in, I'm in. I mean, it's going to be about reclaiming the earth, so it's going to be like the anti on the beach instead of being about the end of everything. It's going to be like The Last of Us, I guess, or
we'll see.
Other movies like that. We'll see, but
so
maybe we'll cover it on this show. Who knows?
So in casting morsels, in May 2018, Chris Evans joined the cast of the film with Neil Blomkamp directing from a screenplay by Chris Sparling. It was in February 2019. It was announced Blomkamp would no longer direct the film. And that same month, Rick Romanois joined the project as director, with Gerard Butler being added to the cast of the film, replacing Blomkamp and Evans, respectively, with Butler producing under his G-Base banner.
I like what they ended up with. So
yeah, I am too. Like, it would have been a very different film under Blomkamp, I think.
Did Blomkamp do
did like Chappie and District
Aliens?
9?
Yeah. No, see, I'm mixed on his movies, so I think this would not have been as good.
Yeah, I don't think it like I like Blomkamp. I'm a big
He has a particular style for sure.
Yeah, I like his style, but I don't think this would have been the movie for his style, and he made the right choice not doing it. Like, it ended up in the right hands. Although Osgood, Ontario, Canada does exist, there is no airport there. So, a little fable.
Should have just landed in Gander, Newfoundland.
The child whose mother begged the Garrity's to take her daughter is named Ellie. Tia Leone's character believed wrongly in Deep Impact in 1998 that the comet in the movie was actually a mistress named Ellie, but really was ELE, which stands for Extinction Level Event, the same severity of the comet in Greenland 2020. And the final movie morsel. At the end of the movie, they showed aerial views of the destroyed Sydneys of Sydney, Paris, Mexico City, and Chicago. And you see identifiable structures as well as buildings still somewhat standing, like the Eiffel Tower or the sign outside Wrigley Field in Chicago. Yet, in the movie, the radio announcer said that there would be 900-degree Fahrenheit winds moving at the speed of sound after the meteor hit. The high winds would not only not leave anything at all standing and wipe everything clean off the map, but the 900-degree Fahrenheit would turn everything into ash.
See Tampa.
Yeah, see Tampa. Or what's left of Tampa, which isn't much. Cinematography by Dana Gonzalez, edited by Gabriel Fleming, music by David Buckley. Release date of December 18th, 2020, with a runtime of 119 minutes, a budget of $35 million, and a box office of $15.3 million. Side note, this movie, again, was meant to be released in theaters. Ultimately, it wasn't released in theaters. They released it on Amazon Prime, and because they made a deal with Amazon Prime, there are no physical plans to release this movie as a Blu-ray or any sort of physical media. It's just on Amazon Prime, which is disappointing because I would absolutely
get Prime and watch
this movie. I mean, yeah, I do, and I definitely watch it that way, but I kind of want like a physical copy of this with like behind the scenes commentary and like stuff on how they made it, like I would buy a copy of this if it was a DVD. So I hope they make it a physical media at some point. I hope this film gets popular and they demand that.
Well, it's been out for 2 years, and I haven't heard anybody talking about it. 3 years now.
Because it got buried by all the COVID news, and I don't think a lot of people know about this film, and which is shocking.
And people expect a shitty meteor movie, like I did.
They'll expect a shitty meteor movie. They'll expect a subpar B action movie because Gerard Butler's name's tied to it,
Gerard
and
Butler's
he's
in it.
pretty much known for like those types of lame kind of action films. It subverts all of that, and it's much better than it probably had any right to be. It's a phenomenal movie, and it would absolutely.
It's the opposite of On the Beach.
Yes, it's the absolute opposite of On the Beach.
On the Beach had this great concept and bad execution. This one had like no concept. A meteor's coming. There's your concept, and a boy has diabetes. No concept, but amazing execution. Like
incredible execution, and absolute rewatchability, 100%. Like I will rewatch this film again. Maybe do a
not a dull moment.
Threat back-to-back Comet Impact with Armageddon Deep Impact, and then this film.
Do it. I could stay. Anyway, I won't do it. Yes, it holds up. I was surprised. This is one I'm going to recommend to people if they just want to. I mean, I'll recommend it as an action movie. Like if you want a sweet action movie with some heart, this is it.
Yeah, it's got great heart.
One of the best I've seen in a long time.
Great scenes, tension.
New movies like that.
Obviously, like I would hope if you're here watching this review, you've probably already seen the movie, and we didn't just spoil all of it for you. But
watch it anyway.
I kind of watch it anyway. Even if watch it again, I'm gonna. It's a great film.
Look, if we determine a movie has rewatchability, then it shouldn't matter if we're spoiling it for the listener. Because even if it's spoiled, it has that rewatchability.
But inherently,
all right, let's get into our disaster movie rankings. Rank these movies, Murphy. Where's Jaemeel for spare change? Better get in here, Jaemeel. Come on now.
I think he's potentially Twitch streaming. It's generally his hour. So yeah, man, it's really hard to pick between top spot. Like,
isn't it?
They're like, I'm gonna Towering Inferno. It's gonna be Towering Inferno top pick. That movie blew me away and had me on the edge of my seat and wowed me. Greenland had me on the edge of my seat and had sucked me in, but there wasn't as many like insane, like, wow, that just fucking happened moments that made me say, holy shit, like, wow, like when I was watching in Towering Inferno.
So,
there were cool scenes in Greenland. I was like, that's cool, but Towering
so did
Inferno
your mind
pop.
Did your mind change before we started talking about these movies or after? Because you were so high on Greenland earlier. You said it's your favorite movie we've covered on this podcast.
Honestly, I was going to go with Greenland, but after we had our discussion and I thought about everything we just said, at that very moment, I was like, no, Towering Inferno gets it, because I remember all of the moments I had, like, I was popping hard at this film, and it was great. There were scenes I was just like, what the fuck was that? Holy shit. Just whoa, like I popped at every crazy moment that happened in the film, and I popped harder at those moments than I did in Greenland. Greenland's moments are good, but it's all just sort of subtle, cerebral tension. Whoa, tense. That's cool. I like that shot. But Inferno, I just way more. And then On the Beach is, could be at the bottom.
I'm gonna go with the same rankings as you, but I will say it was very difficult. But if you remove just probably like two scenes that were really good by Morena Baccarin, then I easily pick the Towering Inferno. But when I think of Greenland, I just think of those two scenes where Morena Baccarin, or even 3 or 4 scenes where she's just really friggin' good in that movie. It makes it sort of like hard to pick, but the strength of it, the entire package, you gotta give it to Towering Inferno, I think.
Yeah.
But we have our new additions to our rankings here.
Yeah, no,
So I'll share that. I'll share that here. Here we go.
I was
so now
very
we have
impressed.
2 more A movies, no B's today, and a C, though I almost made On the Beach a B, but just kind of boring.
Yeah, like I said, it's got good, and there are the scene of the people lining up for their suicide pills. That's gonna stick with me for a very, very long time. Out of the entire film, that scene was like, whoa! That's when it really started like wrapping my head around the gravity of what this film was trying to portray, and I was like, okay. And then everybody starts dying off like left, right, and center at that point. So like there are a lot of crazy scenes in all 3 of these films that are gonna stick with me, you know. But yeah, On the Beach, it was the people getting their pills in
And the
Towering
sign
Inferno.
at the end.
And the sign at the end.
Time, brother.
There's still time, brother. Yeah. And the Towering Inferno, just the crazy, just everything from the stairwell scene to the end of the movie. Like there's, what a
that
film.
brings us to the end. Yeah, we had some good ones here tonight for sure, and I think that brings us to the end of our little show here.
Our show, yeah. Well, you know, as I say, there is still time, brother, but no longer for the end of this show. We here at Hold Up Movie Podcast are a part of a federation of podcasts, if you will. One that talks about things like Star Trek over at Live Long and Podcasts, covering shows like Enterprise, Strange New Worlds. We're doing a review of that tomorrow. They did Enterprise on Monday. We got things where we do radio theater, Locutors of Trek, where they do all sorts of things. I think you got an interview with a gentleman.
Yeah, Derek Tyler Attico coming up, writing the autobiography of Benjamin Sisko. Can't wait to read it and can't wait to talk to Derek about it.
I should have loaded that screen up. Yeah, Locator 6 is going to be a good time. Then there's the X-rated animated review show, the X-Men animated review show with Davan and Andre Mayette. Andre Mayette's
season 5.
Season 5 is a good time. Andre Matt's also host of the Graphic History Podcast, a great podcast to get to know your local artist and or international artist.
There's an interview coming up with Steve Rude, Eisner Award-winning artist of Somewhere Now.
Award-winning artists appearing on Graphics History. We also got the Super Mater Brothers podcast. They are brothers that review Big Brother and Survivor and other reality shows and stuff. We also got the Mary Mater Marvel Society with Dave, Davan, and Jaemeel, covering things like Across the Spider-Verse. They're going to be doing the old Nick Fury show, Secret Invasion soon. Marvel things there. Eamon on Track, where he's covering music and everything that's on track. Hopefully he'll get on track with his next episode, when we don't know. Trivial Debates, we had a gay-themed episode recently with a wonderful panel of hosts and guests, and we're looking at some more episodes in the near future here, so always join us for Trivial Debates if you like some of that. Win the Hellbound Movie Podcast with Michael Chan and Kyle Blackburn.
Alex Blackburn and Michael Chan. Alex Blackburn.
Alex Blackburn. I don't know why I keep thinking his name's Kyle Blackburn. I'm terrible. I'm a terrible person with a bad memory. But that's it for us in these movies. Time's run out, but there's still time to watch the coming attractions. We're going to be going back in time to the prehistoric times. We're covering a few films here. Quest for Fire, Jurassic Park, and 65, just called 65. I thought it was 65 million years ago, but it's just called 65.
One of those could change. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. That's it for us. Enjoy the movies.
Thanks for waltzing Matilda with us.
14.
Yeah.
2001, A Space Odyssey was the astounding epic that aroused a generation, telling them where they might be headed. Now, 20th Century Fox presents a science fantasy adventure that will arouse this generation, telling us where we might have begun.
Since the beginning of time, man has searched the earth for evidence of its past. But while some have looked for clues to the mystery, one man has found the way to bring the mystery back to life.
I own an island off the coast of Costa Rica, and I've spent the last 5 years setting up a kind of biological preserve.
Here, on this private island, science has defied evolution.
Where do you get 100-million-year-old dinosaur blood?
Genetics has mastered creation.
We've made living biological attractions so astounding that they'll capture the imagination of the entire planet.
And extinction is a thing of the past.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
What they got in there, King Kong?
None of these attractions are ready yet, of course, but the park will open with the basic tour you're about to take.
Hey, look at this.
You see something?
Dinosaurs and man. Two species separated by 65 million years of evolution have just been suddenly thrown back into the mix together.
Can I touch it?
Sure. How can we possibly have the slightest idea?
Do you feel that?
What to expect?
Fences are failing all over the park.
Yeah, that's nice.
Phones are out too.
Gotta go.
Universal Pictures presents
Hey, Ian, freeze!
I can't get Jurassic Park back online.
an adventure 65 million years in the making.
Oh no.
This is just a delay. That's all it is. All major theme parks had delays. When they opened Disneyland in 1956, nothing worked.
But John, if the Pirates of the Caribbean breaks down, the pirates don't eat the tourists.
You sure we're safe?
Yes. Unless they figured out how to open doors.
Jurassic Park.
Location unknown.
Charter 373. This is Commander Mills. My ship was hit by an undocumented asteroid.
Location unknown.
Transporting 35 passengers
Location unknown.
on a long-range exploratory mission. Send help.
We've crash landed on an uncharted celestial body.
Location unknown.
I don't know where we are.
I've located one survivor.
A child. The atmosphere is breathable. There's something alien out there. You need to be quiet and move. You and I are gonna get home.
Oh, family.
Ready?